Chapter 54-59. If you returned the fruit of consciousness's heart, what would happen to Lin Yi? I'm sorry, but even so, I can't return the fruit of consciousness's heart to you. Lin Yi spoke, but he was not too forceful. Your rules didn't say that we can't take the fruit of consciousness's heart, and we spent a lot of money to come in. Don't you think your request is a bit too much? I didn't think anyone could get it, Marquis Yu said honestly. Marquis Yu spoke the truth, that is almost impossible to accomplish. I don't know what method you guys used, but I definitely won't let you guys take it away. Otherwise, it would be my dereliction of duty. The island master won't let me off either. So, everyone, sorry. I will pay you back in full this time, but please return the fruit of consciousness's heart. I'm sorry, that's impossible. Lin Yi did not lack spiritual jades at all. How could returning it be more important than the fruit of consciousness's heart? Moreover, Lin Yi almost entered the fourth-dimensional space for the fruit of consciousness's heart. It was a risk, and it was not worth it to return it just like that. Don't force me. Marquis Yu was obviously angry. Lin Yi's attitude made him unhappy. Do you know who you're talking to? Do you really plan to become enemies with Tai Snake Island? I don't have the habit of making enemies everywhere, but since you want to, I can only accept it. Lin Yi shook his head helplessly. Tell me, what should we do? Very well. Marquis Yu's aura suddenly soared. Bing Wuqing's expression tightened, and she prepared for battle. Chu Tianlu was already pale with fear. He sat at the side, trembling all over. He even forgot to use his vital energy to defend himself. Of course, he could not defend himself even if he wanted to. The difference in strength between him and the person fighting was too great. Oh, very well. Lin Yi nodded. You want to fight? What do you think? Marquis Yu's expression was ferocious. His hands moved, and his sleeves suddenly flung open. Like two poisonous snakes, they entangled towards Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing. Lin Yi did not know whether to call him arrogant or confident. 1 against 2. Helplessly shaking his head, Lin Yi also moved. In the next moment, Marquis Yu, who was previously in a frenzy of rage, fell stiffly onto the ground with a thud. Without any warning, he was like a corpse that had lost its soul. Bing Wuqing's breathing tightened. Although she had already witnessed Lin Yi's prowess, her current opponent was a consummate nascent soul cultivator. She was still thoroughly shocked. The battle was over just like that? Bing Wuqing found it a little funny. She didn't even know how to describe her boss's ruthlessness. Chu Tianlu was dumbstruck as he watched from the side. What was going on? Why did that expert at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul realm kneel before the fight even started? Wasn't this too strange? He rubbed his eyes to see if he was dreaming. Unfortunately, Marquis Yu was still lying on the ground without any movement. Bing Wuqing sneered and scolded, "How dare you yell at Big Boss with your meager skills? Are you trying to act all high and mighty? Are you hurt?" Lin Yi was a little speechless, but he had no time to care about Bing Wuqing's antics. He had more important things to do. Essentially, he didn't want to hurt Marquis Yu. After all, it was meaningless to become enemies with Tai Snake Island. What the other party said made sense. Anyone else would have risked their lives for the heart of the fruit of consciousness. From two different standpoints, it was hard to say who was right and who was wrong. How is it? Not bad, right? Lin Yi suddenly asked as he looked at Marquis Yu's primordial spirit, who was at a loss in the dark space. Marquis Yu was about to attack Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing when he suddenly felt his primordial spirit being forcibly stripped away by something. In an instant, he arrived in a dark space. The area of this dark space was limited, and it was sealed in all directions. No matter what he did, he couldn't get out. In an instant, despair filled his entire being. In fact, if it was the Lin Yi before he entered Tai Snake Island, it would have been difficult to lure Marquis Yu's primordial spirit out so easily. Firstly, Marquis Yu was an expert in the nascent soul realm great perfection, and his strength was obvious. Secondly, Marquis Yu was not defenseless. He was already prepared for battle. Under such circumstances, it was even more difficult to succeed. However, Lin Yi did it with ease and joy. This was all thanks to the fusion with the primordial spirit of the sky-devouring giant crocodile. That guy was originally a nascent soul realm great perfection. After the fusion with Lin Yi, the power of Lin Yi's primordial spirit instantly skyrocketed. Although there were some flaws, as long as Marquis Yu's primordial spirit was not devoured, and he merely captured it into the jade pendant, there was no problem. You. How did you do it? Where is this? What magic treasure do you have? Marquis Yu was about to collapse. Suddenly, he heard Lin Yi's voice and asked loudly. No, this is a new type of martial technique. You just haven't heard of it. Lin Yi's voice was very cold. If you stay here for too long, your physical body will die, and you will slowly dissipate due to the lack of consciousness. In simple words, you will be trapped to death by me sooner or later. Marquis Yu wanted to ask Lin Yi to let him go, but after thinking about it, it was impossible. Why would he let him go? With this kind of ability, wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted to him? There was no need to say anything like, you just wait and see, because he couldn't get out at all. I can let you go, but don't cause trouble again. Otherwise, I won't be so easy to talk to next time. Lin Yi seemed to know what Marquis Yu was thinking and said directly. Okay. Marquis Yu gritted his teeth. Although he didn't want to give up the fruit of consciousness's core, in order to live, he could only give in. After all, in front of a real top expert, he had no way of bargaining at all. I hope you don't seek your own death when you come out. After Lin Yi said this, he let Marquis Yu's primordial spirit back. Marquis Yu's body suddenly moved. Bing Wuqing was shocked and quickly prepared for battle. However, Lin Yi waved his hand and stopped her. It's okay, don't worry about him. He won't dare to act like an egg anymore. Marquis Yu was speechless when he heard Lin Yi's words. He thought to himself, when did I act like an egg? Previously, I thought I had you all. Who knew you were so powerful? Who? Marquis Yu rested on the ground for a long time before he stabilized his primordial spirit. He stood up carefully and looked at Lin Yi with vigilance and respect. This. Senior, if there's nothing else, we're leaving. Lin Yi was too lazy to say more and said directly. Wait a minute. Marquis Yu panicked and shouted. Chapter 5460. No, Senior. That consciousness fruit's heart is really important to us, you see. Marquis Yu said carefully. Lin Yi was angered by Marquis Yu's words. You still want to take back the consciousness fruit's heart? Are you really not afraid of death? No, Senior, you've misunderstood. What I mean is, can we exchange? I have enough sincerity on my side, I can bring you to see the island master. Marquis Yu said quickly. Bring me to see the island master and let the island master deal with me? Lin Yi narrowed his eyes. Are you sure your island master is my opponent? Won't he be killed by me? Senior, you misunderstood me. I don't mean that. I just want to exchange something, Marquis Yu explained with a bitter smile. Alright, if that's the case, then let your island master come over. Why do I have to see him? My time is limited and my patience is limited. Hurry and contact him. Lin Yi waved his hand. Actually, Lin Yi also wanted to see what kind of person this mysterious Tai Snake Island master was. His current modified soul-reaping hand rarely had an opponent. Our island master. Sigh, how do I say this? Marquis Yu's expression became a little awkward. He's a little special and can't come here, so please forgive me, Senior. Can you come? Lin Yi was instantly amused. He wants to see me and wants me to go? What if it's a trap? What wishful thinking is that? Senior, I can guarantee that we are absolutely sincere. I have just communicated with the island master, and he is also very happy to meet you. You can have an equal negotiation and see if you can use our other good things to exchange for the spiritual knowledge fruit's core in your hands. If you can't, then we will not force you. Oh. Lin Yi looked at Marquis Yu in surprise. When did he communicate with the island master? Could it be that he had the island master's divine sense mark on him? The two of them could communicate through divine sense? That should be the case. Then Lin Yi was even more interested in this mysterious island master. This method was good, even better than Lin Yi's qi transmission. Lin Yi wanted to learn. But on the surface, he still pretended to be very unhappy. Is that so? What's the strength of your island lord? This. Forgive me for being blunt, but I'm not too sure either. I only know that island master's abilities are much higher than mine, Marquis Yu said with a bitter smile. At this moment, some disciples from other sects came out from the teleportation formation. When they saw Marquis Yu and Lin Yi talking at the side, they didn't disturb them. After all, they knew Bing Wuqing's strength. Lin Yi saw that there were more people, so he didn't say anything more. He nodded and said, "All right, you lead the way. Wuqing, you and Heavenly Road go back first." After saying that, Lin Yi used Jin Qi to send a sound transmission and set up a meeting place with the two of them. His goal was to not let this Marquis Yu hear him. It didn't matter to Lin Yi to meet the island master. No matter how strong the island master was, Lin Yi was confident that escaping would not be a problem. However, Bing Wuqing and Chu Tianlu would not be able to do so. It would be better for them to leave first. In case Lin Yi couldn't take care of them when the time came. All right. Bing Wuqing didn't say anything more. She didn't even ask a single question, and directly pulled Chu Tianlu away. This kind of follower was really worry-free. Lin Yi felt that this kind of character wasn't bad. Lead the way. After Bing Wuqing and Chu Tianlu had left, Lin Yi said to Marquis Yu. All right, senior, this way please. Marquis Yu made a gesture of invitation. He didn't stop Bing Wuqing and Chu Tianlu from leaving at all. It was obvious that he didn't want to make things difficult for them. At this moment, Marquis Yu was already certain that Lin Yi was the backbone of the three of them. The heart of the fruit of consciousness must be with Lin Yi. Lin Yi followed Marquis Yu and walked forward at a steady pace on the small path of Tai Snake Island. In the blink of an eye, they came to an uninhabited area. It was obvious that there was a teleportation formation here, similar to the one used to go to the trials. It's here. Marquis Yu pointed at the teleportation formation and said, after we pass through this teleportation formation, we will be able to see the master of Tai Snake Island. Lin Yi shrugged. He wasn't afraid of Marquis Yu's little tricks, because Lin Yi could kill him at any time and then return to the heavenly stage island in his primordial spirit state. Marquis Yu took out some spiritual jades from the bag he carried with him and placed them into a device that looked like a small sacrificial altar beside the teleportation formation. Then, there was a flash of white light, and it was obvious that the teleportation formation had been activated. Please, senior. Marquis Yu said. Lin Yi nodded and walked in first. Marquis Yu admired his courage and boldness. He followed closely behind and entered the teleportation formation. What entered Lin Yi's eyes was a narrow path. It was dim, and it seemed to be the underground cave of Tai Snake Island. Lin Yi saw that Marquis Yu had arrived, so he said, "How do we go?" "I will lead the way for senior." Marquis Yu walked in front and began to lead the way. This path was not only narrow, but there were also many forks in the road. Marquis Yu walked in front skillfully, but Lin Yi could smoothly remember the path that he had walked through once. Even if he came out by himself, it would not be a problem. On both sides of the path, there was a faint light. It was unknown what the light was, but although it was dim, they could clearly see the road under their feet. The two of them walked forward and finally arrived in front of a door. Marquis Yu went forward and made a few gestures in front of the door. From Lin Yi's point of view, each of his gestures contained spiritual energy, and the strength of the spiritual energy was not the same. It should be similar to a type of password to unlock a lock. Lin Yi also memorized each and every one of them in his heart. What he was best at was imitation. Please come in. After Marquis Yu entered the password gesture, he said to Lin Yi. At this time, the door was still closed. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows, and the next moment, the door slowly opened. A ray of dazzling light came from inside. The visibility here was obviously much greater than outside. Of course, Marquis Yu was already used to it. He waited for Lin Yi to walk in, then followed behind him. This was a large hall, and the light came from the glowing stones around the large hall. In other words, this place was still not connected to the outside world, and should still be under Tai Snake Island. The large hall was very spacious. Other than the glowing stones on the stone pillars around it, there was nothing else. In the middle of the large hall, there was an especially large high platform, and on the high platform, there was actually a primordial spirit. Lin Yi was very surprised. He did not expect to see a primordial spirit here. Could it be that the master of Tai Snake Island at Marquis Yu mentioned was this primordial spirit in front of him? Chapter 54-61. Marquis Yu ignored Lin Yi's suspicious gaze. He bowed and walked forward quickly. He bowed respectfully to the primordial spirit on the high platform and said, "Island Lord, the person is here." Lin Yi saw this scene and was secretly surprised. He thought that Marquis Yu's master would be a human cultivator who was stronger than him. Who knew that it was a primordial spirit? However, for Marquis Yu, a top expert at the great perfection of the nascent soul realm, to be so respectful, the primordial spirit on the high platform was definitely not simple. Just as Marquis Yu finished speaking, the primordial spirit spoke. "Hello, human boy. After so many years, you are one of the few humans I have met. How is it? Are you excited and proud?" Lin Yi was instantly speechless. Why was this primordial spirit so narcissistic? Did he not understand the situation? He was the one who begged him to see him. How did it become him being happy and proud to see him? You took the heart of the fruit of consciousness. The primordial spirit on the high platform did not wait for Lin Yi to speak and continued to ask coldly. Lin Yi frowned and said faintly, "That's right. I heard from this junior with the surname Yu that you want to make a deal with me. Hand over the heart of the fruit of consciousness and I will let you live." The primordial spirit on the high platform did not even bother with Lin Yi's question. Instead, he used a condescending and arrogant tone to order. It was as if Lin Yi was just an insignificant ant in his eyes. It was already a great gift for him to be able to speak to Lin Yi. "Oh, so this is your so-called deal?" Lin Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. He did not get angry but smiled instead and looked at Marquis Yu with a playful look. Marquis Yu's body trembled slightly. He had a deep understanding of Lin Yi's terror. Although the master on the high platform was also a powerful existence in his eyes, he did not have much confidence against the strange Lin Yi. "Island Lord, just now, shut up, useless thing." Just as Marquis Yu opened his mouth, he was interrupted by the primordial spirit. "Being called a junior by a weak human, don't you think it's embarrassing?" Marquis Yu shrunk his head. A strong cultivator of the nascent soul realm who was at the perfected nascent soul realm suddenly kept quiet out of fear. He could only look at Lin Yi awkwardly. "Heh." Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders and said, "Since you don't have any sincerity in the transaction, then let's forget about it. Bye." At this point, Lin Yi could already tell that Marquis Yu had sincerely wanted to trade with him previously. However, he could not even speak in front of this primordial spirit. "Huh, you want to leave? In my territory, how can I allow you to leave as you please?" The primordial spirit on the high platform snorted lightly, and a formless divine sense vortex instantly surged in the spacious hall. Although Lin Yi had already expected it, he was still a little surprised to really feel the strength of this primordial spirit. Wasn't it said that in the immemorial small Jianghu, the highest strength was only at the perfected nascent soul realm? Why was there a primordial spirit at the perfected nascent soul realm? However, the strength of Lin Yi's divine sense had already reached the perfected nascent soul realm long ago. Moreover, recently, he had more methods to use his primordial spirit. This primordial spirit at the perfected nascent soul realm was really not a threat to him. I am not a person who likes to kill. I will give you one last chance. Use your life to exchange for the heart of the fruit of consciousness. To trade or not to trade, quickly decide. The primordial spirit seemed to be determined. How arrogant. Lin Yi laughed and said, a primordial spirit at the perfected nascent soul realm should be the top existence in the immemorial small Jianghu. No wonder you are so arrogant. You have some eyesight. You can actually see that I am at the perfected nascent soul realm. You know quite a bit. The primordial spirit seemed to be a little surprised. In the immemorial small Jianghu, the perfected nascent soul realm was a legend. Lin Yi had seen through his strength in one sentence. It was no wonder that Marquis Yu was not his opponent. If he was facing a practitioner at the perfected nascent soul realm, Lin Yi's soul-reaping hand might not be as easy as it was for Marquis Yu. But against a primordial spirit at the perfected nascent soul realm, there was nothing to be afraid of. With a wave of both hands, two pill fire flew out and easily destroyed the two formless vortexes on both sides. For the current Lin Yi, pill fire was already the most basic method to deal with primordial spirit enemies. It was not powerful, but it won in practicality. Interesting. Although the primordial spirit on the high platform was a little surprised by Lin Yi's pill fire, he was more interested in Lin Yi. The consciousness vortexes in the hall were just a small trick of his. After all, the strength that Lin Yi displayed at the moment was only at the great completion of the Foundation establishment realm. Even if Marquis Yu was at a disadvantage in the hands of Lin Yi, it was impossible for him to really use his trump card right from the start. However, no matter how small the trick was, it was still the trick of a primordial spirit at the perfected nascent soul realm. Lin Yi was able to destroy two vortexes so effortlessly, it was enough to attract the primordial spirit's attention. Since you refuse to trade, then I'll fulfill your wish. Before the primordial spirit's voice died away, more than 10 consciousness vortexes appeared around Lin Yi in an instant, frantically tearing at Lin Yi's body. In other words, it was tearing at the primordial spirit in Lin Yi's body. If it was a cultivator like Marquis Yu, it could be said that his primordial spirit would be immediately pulled out by this consciousness vortex. Even if it was not completely torn apart, it would definitely be injured to a certain extent. However, Lin Yi himself was a body formed by the primordial spirit, and his strength was no weaker than the primordial spirit on the high platform. Towards these consciousness vortexes, he did not really care. This move was somewhat similar to the soul hook hand, but it was not as overbearing as the soul hook hand. However, in terms of destructive power towards the primordial spirit, it was slightly higher than the soul hook hand. When he had the time, Lin Yi could study it. Lin Yi was now quite eager to attack the primordial spirit. It was rare to meet a primordial spirit master, so he immediately had the idea of secretly learning a few moves. Before, the heaven-devouring giant crocodile had given Lin Yi a lot of benefits, and now he met a guy that was even more powerful than the heaven-devouring giant crocodile. This trip to Tai Snake Island, even if he did not get the consciousness fruit and the heart of the consciousness fruit, it was still a worthwhile trip. Just when Lin Yi wanted to experience the principle and power of these consciousness vortexes, the primordial spirit on the high platform suddenly retracted the consciousness vortexes. Strange boy, he is obviously at the Foundation establishment great perfection, but he can actually persist in my consciousness vortex for a breath of time without his primordial spirit leaving his body. The primordial spirit looked at Lin Yi and said to himself strangely. When Marquis Yu on the side heard this, he really wanted to say to his master, this is not some weak chicken at the Foundation establishment great perfection, he is an existence that can instantly kill me, a nascent soul great perfection. This island master has suddenly changed his mind. You look quite interesting. How about this, hand over the heart of the consciousness fruit, and this island master will accept you as a younger brother and let you be the chief steward of this Tai Snake Island. Then, I will give you a consciousness fruit. Quickly kneel down and thank me. Chapter 54-62. Is there something wrong with this guy's brain? Did he eat too many brain-dead pills? Lin Yi was thunderstruck. He turned around and looked at Marquis Yu with a strange expression. Taking Lin Yi as a follower? Head butler? Kneeling and thanking him? Thank your 8 generations of ancestors. Marquis Yu was getting more and more embarrassed and speechless. His position as head butler had been transferred to Lin Yi out of the blue, and he couldn't even reason with it. Although he didn't know what brain-dead pills were, he felt that what Lin Yi said made sense. Of course, he wouldn't dare to say this even if he was beaten to death. Lin Yi wasn't someone to be trifled with, and his island master wasn't someone to be trifled with either. They were the top existences in the ancient underworld. Marquis, you just wanted to lie down and pretend to be dead. What? I have offered such a generous offer, do you still want to die? The tone of the primordial spirit on the high platform was full of surprise, and he wasn't faking it. From his point of view, although Lin Yi was a little strange, he was still an ant. To be able to offer such an offer was definitely his generosity out of kindness. If Lin Yi still didn't know what was good for him, he would be too shameless. As expected, he ate too many brain-dead pills. Lin Yi shook his head helplessly, then shrugged and said, "Forget it, I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Since you're not sincere, the deal is off." After he finished speaking, Lin Yi performed the butterfly subtle steps and quickly retreated. I've already said that this is my territory. It won't be so easy for you to leave. The primordial spirit snorted, and the surrounding stone pillars shone brightly. Rays of light that were visible to the naked eye crisscrossed and surrounded the entire hall, forming a giant cage. Lin Yi paused. He didn't really want to leave. Otherwise, he would have used the super butterfly subtle steps or even the extreme butterfly subtle steps. The reason he used the butterfly subtle steps was to give the primordial spirit a chance to attack and continue to study his primordial spirit attack skills. Unexpectedly, the primordial spirit didn't attack directly, but instead created a cage. The jade pendant would give off a warning when he got close to the rays. Obviously, if he touched it, it would be quite dangerous. As he stopped, Lin Yi casually shot out an alchemy fire, wanting to see if the rays could be destroyed with alchemy fire. Unfortunately, when the alchemy fire hit the rays, it was extinguished with a puff. Not even a spark was produced. The primordial spirit on the platform chuckled proudly and said, "Don't waste your energy. It's said that in my territory, no one can please me." Back then, even the primordial sky-devouring crocodile couldn't do anything in my territory, let alone you, a mere peak foundation establishment cultivator. Hearing this, Lin Yi stopped and suddenly said with a strange expression, "Heaven-devouring giant crocodile? It seems that you can't do anything to him." The primordial spirit was startled and coughed. The heaven-devouring giant crocodile is now just a poor wandering soul. It seems that you have seen him. Let me tell you, if you don't surrender, your fate will be much more miserable than him. The heaven-devouring giant crocodile is a wandering soul, but your Tai Shi doesn't seem to be much stronger than him. Lin Yi looked at the primordial spirit with a faint smile. If the heaven-devouring giant crocodile didn't have the obstruction of those divine sense tumors, it was estimated that it would have already reached the early stage of mysterious ascension or even the peak of the early stage of mysterious ascension. After all, the 34 divine sense fruits were not eaten for nothing. As for this primordial spirit, its identity was already obvious. Who else could fight with the heaven-devouring giant crocodile except for the Tai Shi Island? Good eyesight. Tai Shi primordial spirit did not hide and directly admitted his identity. As for the things that Lin Yi said that made him a little embarrassed, he selectively ignored them. I didn't expect you to be able to recognize this island master. Since you know this island master's true body, you should be more sensible and hand over the spiritual knowledge fruit's heart. The entire Tai Snake Island is formed from this island master's flesh and blood. If you want to die, you can try refusing me. Try it. Lin Yi curled his lips and chuckled. The heaven-devouring giant crocodile wandered on Taishi Island, but I don't see you being able to do anything to him. Do you think you can scare me by bragging that Taishi Island is formed by your flesh? Taishi primordial spirit was aggrieved. This guy really touched his sore spot. The heaven-devouring giant crocodile was a thorn in his heart, but Lin Yi repeatedly stabbed him. You don't know what's good for you. Then die for this island master. Taishi primordial spirit said angrily. Hundreds of tiny rays of light suddenly shot out from the surrounding stone pillars, concentrating around Lin Yi's body. This was not Taishi primordial spirit's own martial arts skill, but was completed through the array set up in this place. Its power was more than 1,000 times stronger than the previous divine sense vortex. Lin Yi suddenly turned pale with fright. If not for the warning from the jade pendant, even if he used the extreme butterfly's subtle steps, he might not be able to avoid the attack. If he was hit, he would definitely be seriously injured. These rays of light could cause the jade pendant to warn him, which meant that they could threaten Lin Yi's life. At this speed, Lin Yi did not even have time to transform into a primordial spirit. If he was not careful, he might really be tricked by Taishi primordial spirit. What? Taishi primordial spirit cried out involuntarily. At the same time he launched his attack, Lin Yi's figure disappeared in a flash, and all his attacks missed. This was something he had never encountered before. Before Taishi primordial spirit could lock onto Lin Yi again, Lin Yi had already appeared on the high platform like a ghost. He was only one step away from Taishi primordial spirit. It's impolite not to reciprocate. Island Master Taishi, please accept my reciprocation. Lin Yi smiled coldly, and released his primordial spirit to its fullest. Primordial spirit devour. Sensing that his primordial spirit was rapidly melting and being devoured by Lin Yi, Taishi primordial spirit suddenly screamed in panic. Originally, Lin Yi really did not want to devour Taishi primordial spirit. After all, devouring the heaven-devouring giant crocodile's primordial spirit had brought great benefits to Lin Yi, but it had also brought about the hidden danger of the divine sense tumor. If it was not necessary, Lin Yi did not want to continue devouring primordial spirits. However, Taishi primordial spirit's technique was enough to threaten Lin Yi's safety, which was why Lin Yi had used his most powerful primordial spirit technique. Ah! Primordial spirit devour. You actually know primordial spirit devour. Ah! No! Stop! Senior, please spare my life. Taishi primordial spirit tumbled violently, desperately trying to resist Lin Yi's primordial spirit devour. Unfortunately, he was a primordial spirit, and in the face of this primordial spirit devour technique, there was almost no way for him to resist. In an instant, Taishi primordial spirit turned from a cloud of mist to a mini snake. This should be the original body of his primordial spirit. Chapter 54-63. Not to mention Lin Yi, even Marquis Yu, who was under the high platform, was dumbfounded. Why did the arrogant Taishi suddenly lie down? Lin Yi twitched his mouth and stopped swallowing the spirit. The side effects of the giant crocodile spirit had not been completely digested, so he would not swallow it if he could. Otherwise, Lin Yi did not know what the consequences would be if the spirit of Taishi in the early stage of mysterious ascension realm were to swallow it all. Oh, okay, then tell me what to do. Lin Yi asked lightly. Taishi, who had his life saved, carefully stole a glance at Lin Yi and said hesitantly, Senior, the heart of the spiritual knowledge fruit is the root of my Taishi island. Without the heart of the spiritual knowledge fruit, the spiritual knowledge fruit is gone. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows impatiently and waved his hand, get to the point. Ah. Taishi was shocked and quickly said, the energy contained in the heart of the spiritual knowledge fruit is about 5 spiritual knowledge fruits. Can I give you 10 spiritual knowledge fruits in exchange? 10. After Lin Yi heard it, he could not help but smile. Taishi heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Lin Yi laughing. What a country bumpkin. Just 10 spiritual knowledge fruits and he was so surprised and satisfied. Compared to the heart of the spiritual knowledge fruit, what was it? Oh. Lin Yi smiled and suddenly changed his expression. He said lightly, not exchanging. Not exchanging? Primordial spirit Tai Shi was dumbfounded. Why was he not exchanging? Wasn't it fine just now? What about the surprise? What about the satisfaction? Lin Yi looked at Tai Shi calmly and said, just 10 spiritual knowledge fruits. Do you think they can be compared with the heart of the spiritual knowledge fruit? I say, little snake, if you don't show some sincerity, we don't need to have a good chat, right? Tai Shi gritted his teeth in his heart, but on the surface, he had to continue to smile humbly. Senior, how can you say that I'm not sincere? The energy of the spiritual knowledge fruit's heart is indeed equivalent to 5 spiritual knowledge fruits. If you exchange it for 10 spiritual knowledge fruits, wouldn't it be quite profitable for Senior? Lin Yi glanced at Tai Shi and pretended to think for a moment before saying, since you said so, then fine, I'll take a loss. I'll use this spiritual awareness fruit heart which is equivalent to 5 spiritual awareness fruits. After listening to the first half of Lin Yi's words, Tai Shi was filled with endless hope. But after listening to the second half, Tai Shi immediately wanted to fight with Lin Yi. But when he thought about it, if he were to risk his life, he would at most lose his life. It would not affect Lin Yi at all, so he could only continue to swallow his anger. Don't. Senior, how could 5 divine knowledge fruits be as effective as 10 divine knowledge fruits? Let's discuss it again. Tai Shi was afraid that Lin Yi would really take away the spiritual awareness fruit's heart, so he quickly squeezed out a flattering expression. Oh, what do you think if I kill you like this, then take away the spiritual awareness fruit's heart, and your 10 spiritual awareness fruits? Lin Yi's mouth evoked a playful smile as he said lightly to Tai Shi's spirit. Hey! Tai Shi's spirit suddenly quivered, and his small body immediately straightened. He said righteously, this is a great idea. But for a peerless person like Senior who is chivalrous, courageous, righteous, handsome, elegant, he will never use this kind of idea. After thinking about it, it seemed that something was wrong. Tai Shi's spirit quickly added weakly, I'm sorry, I spoke too fast. Just now, the last evil never wins over good doesn't count. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't expect Tai Shi's flattering skills to be so good. He could even come up with a set of idioms. In the cultivation world, the strong preyed on the weak. It was not uncommon for people to kill others and steal their treasures. If Lin Yi could find the place where Tai Shi hid the spiritual awareness fruit, he could rob it. Robbing something from the hands of this pretentious Tai Shi would not feel any psychological burden. But the problem was that this hall should be covered by an array. Lin Yi could not find any trace of the spiritual awareness fruit at all. Since killing Tai Shi might not necessarily get the spiritual awareness fruit, the best way was naturally to exchange for it. In addition, Lin Yi had another consideration. The conventional rule of the cultivation world was that natural treasures should not be harvested. Leaving the roots for future generations meant leaving the roots for oneself. If there were no extra spiritual awareness fruit, Lin Yi would naturally not give up the heart of the spiritual awareness fruit in order to deal with the cancer of the spiritual awareness fruit. But now that there were so many spiritual awareness fruit, it was a good choice to leave the heart of the spiritual awareness fruit on Tai Shi Island and let the island continue to produce spiritual awareness fruit. Okay, stop talking nonsense. You take out all the spiritual awareness fruits you have and I will let you live. I will also return the heart of the spiritual awareness fruit to you. Lin Yi waved his hand and gave an extremely strong order. Tai Shi and Marquis Yu felt that these words and tone were very familiar. It seemed to be the way Tai Shi spoke to Lin Yi just now. Both of them sighed in their hearts, and Tai Shi didn't dare be slow. He glanced at Lin Yi and stuttered, Senior, it's not easy to form the spirit fruit, I really only have 10, 12 of them. Originally, Tai Shi wanted to say that there were only 10, but when he saw Lin Yi's face sink slightly, he quickly added 2 more. To be honest, having 12 spiritual awareness fruits had already made Lin Yi quite satisfied, but looking at Tai Shi's appearance, he should still be hiding something. So, Lin Yi narrowed his eyes and looked at Tai Shi coldly. Really? Really, really? Tai Shi's small snake head quickly nodded, for fear that Lin Yi would not believe it, and a series of afterimages appeared. Oh. So the giant heaven-devouring crocodile is much stronger than you. Lin Yi's mind turned and threw out the giant heaven-devouring crocodile to test Tai Shi. Normally, the giant heaven-devouring crocodile could get 34 spiritual awareness fruits. As the owner of Tai Shi Island, Tai Shi's spirit should not be worse than the giant heaven-devouring crocodile. Sure enough, when he heard the name of the giant heaven-devouring crocodile, Tai Shi's heart suddenly thumped. How could he forget this bastard shit-stirrer? This human had obviously seen the giant heaven-devouring crocodile before. Could he have heard something from the giant heaven-devouring crocodile? Tai Shi's mind raced. Before he could think of how to deal with Lin Yi, he heard Lin Yi say faintly, "I haven't used the soul-searching technique for a long time. It seems that I have the opportunity to review it today." Hearing the word soul-searching technique, Tai Shi suddenly felt like his soul was about to leave his body. He was a spirit. How could he withstand the tyrannical destruction of the soul-searching technique? The outcome was not much different from being swallowed by Lin Yi's spirit. Senior. Really, I really only have 20 spiritual awareness fruits. I don't have any more. In a hurry, Tai Shi's spirit roared and told the truth. Chapter 54-64. Lin Yi looked at Essence Spirit Tai Shi teasingly and said with a faint smile, 20? Didn't you say 12 just now? Slip of the tongue. Slip of the tongue. You know how my mouth is sometimes. Tai Snake smiled awkwardly as he moved back subconsciously, afraid that Lin Yi would really use the soul-searching skill. It was better to stay away from dangerous people like this. Senior's aura shocked me, and I was nervous and said 20 as 12. Please forgive me, Senior. That's right, Lin Yi. Lin Yi naturally knew that Tai Shi was talking nonsense, but he didn't expose him. He just touched his chin with his hand and said to himself with a pondering expression, "Why is it different from what the heaven-devouring giant crocodile said? If I knew this earlier, I wouldn't have swallowed him completely just now. I should have left some to search his soul." When Essence Spirit Tai Shi heard Lin Yi's soft muttering, he was even more frightened. It turned out that the heaven-devouring giant crocodile had been swallowed. Fortunately, he didn't fight with this human, otherwise, he would have died with the heaven-devouring giant crocodile. As for whether Lin Yi was lying, Essence Spirit Tai Shi really didn't have any doubts. At this moment, he carefully felt that there was a trace of the Essence Spirit aura of the heaven-devouring giant crocodile on Lin Yi's body. He didn't notice it before, but now he could confirm it after careful observation. The highest level of lies was 9 truths and 1 lie. Lin Yi was just half-truths, but it was enough to deal with Essence Spirit Tai Shi. The frightened Essence Spirit Tai Shi didn't dare to hesitate. He was afraid that Lin Yi would search and devour his soul if he didn't agree. That would be too cruel. Plucking up his courage, Essence Spirit Tai Shi smiled flatteringly and said, "Senior, Junior doesn't know what that damn crocodile said. Actually, Junior has an agreement with him." Lin Yi raised his eyebrows noncommittally and didn't answer. He was originally lying to Essence Spirit Tai Shi, so of course, he wouldn't say anything to stop him. Seeing that Lin Yi didn't say anything, Tai Shi continued, "Because of the experience of both sides suffering losses, the two of us made an agreement not to attack each other. The spiritual consciousness fruit is also picked by each of us." From Tai Shi's unconcealed explanation, Lin Yi learned how Tai Shi and the heaven-devouring giant crocodile divided the spiritual consciousness fruits. Due to the fact that both of them were heavily injured, they were extremely fearful of each other. Therefore, they did not dare to act rashly before they had absolute confidence. Under such circumstances, it was agreed that one person would take turns to pick the spiritual knowledge fruits. Last time, it was Tai Shi, and this time, it was Sky-devouring giant crocodile. In other words, Sky-devouring giant crocodile had 34 spiritual knowledge fruits. Theoretically, Tai Shi should also have at least 34 spiritual knowledge fruits. However, because of the existence of the Tai Snake Island trial, Tai Snake only obtained 20 spiritual consciousness fruits. He really did not lie to Lin Yi about this. Every time it was sky-devouring giant crocodile's turn, it would find the spiritual consciousness fruit first. It was just that this time, it was unlucky to meet its nemesis, Lin Yi. Otherwise, apart from Tai Shi, no one else could be its opponent. Every time, Tai Shi's consciousness fruit would have to wait until the end of the trial before Marquis Yu would pick it and give it to Tai Shi. 14 of the times, the trial takers had gotten it first, so Tai Shi only had 20 consciousness fruits. These spiritual consciousness fruits were of great use to Tai Shi. After accumulating 36 spiritual consciousness fruits, they were used in conjunction with the array. Therefore, none of them were used, unlike the sky-devouring giant crocodile, which ate every spiritual consciousness fruit it got. As for the Tai Snake Island trial, the purpose was to collect spiritual jades to maintain the spiritual energy of the entire Tai Snake Island. Only in this way could the spiritual consciousness fruits core produce spiritual consciousness fruits. Otherwise, how could Tai Shi be willing to let others take away the spiritual consciousness fruits? A sky-devouring giant crocodile took away half of it. So that's how it is. Lin Yi nodded. There were so many twists and turns behind this matter, but in any case, it was already an unexpected harvest to be able to obtain 20 spiritual consciousness fruits. Although Lin Yi did not say it, Tai Shi's essence soul still took out the 20 spiritual consciousness fruits. Lin Yi paid attention to it and found that there was indeed a shielding array. If Tai Shi's essence soul did not take the initiative to take it out, he would not have been able to find it. Senior, these are all the spiritual consciousness fruits this junior has, please count them. Tai Shi's heart was bleeding. These were his treasures for many years. He was not willing to use any of them, but now they were all taken advantage of by Lin Yi. Facing Lin Yi, Tai Shi's essence soul really did not dare to play any tricks. He even hesitated to mention the spiritual consciousness fruit's core again, for fear of angering Lin Yi and making him want to devour and search his soul again. Lin Yi did not want to act shamelessly. Leaving behind the spiritual consciousness fruit's core and letting Tai Snake Island continue to produce spiritual consciousness fruits was originally part of his plan, so after collecting the 20 spiritual consciousness fruits, he happily took out the spiritual consciousness fruit's core. Primordial spirit Tai Shi was relieved. He beamed with joy and complimented, "Senior, you are really a trustworthy person. A promise is worth 1,000 gold. This junior's admiration for you is like a surging tide, continuous and endless." Lin Yi looked at Tai Shi's essence soul with a strange expression. This guy could even say such words. Did he also spend time in the secular world? Tai Shi did not know what Lin Yi was thinking. Although losing his treasures for many years made him feel a little heartache, thinking that his old enemy, the heaven-devouring giant crocodile, was finished, and from now on, Tai Snake Island would be his to rule. With the spiritual consciousness fruit's core, would he be afraid of not having any spiritual consciousness fruits? No. Since this human already knew about the spiritual consciousness fruit's core, would he come to collect the spiritual consciousness fruits every year? If that was the case, what was the difference between having or not having the spiritual consciousness fruit's core? Tai Shi thought of this possibility and became depressed. He looked at Lin Yi and suddenly had an idea. He got closer and said, "Senior, I'm sorry. This junior admires you so much, and can't wait to follow Senior all the time. Do you think you can accept this junior as your little brother?" "Accept you as my little brother?" Lin Yi suddenly felt like he was struck by lightning. This Tai Shi's brain was really unpredictable. If he did not give him the spiritual consciousness fruit's core just now, it was still understandable. Since he had already returned the spiritual consciousness fruit's core to him, why did he still say this? Was there really such a saying that when a tiger's body trembled, the king's aura would leak? In fact, Tai Shi's thinking was very simple. Lin Yi was such a powerful human, it was definitely impossible to fight against him, so relying on him was a good choice. Especially since Lin Yi looked decent, he should not rob his little brother's things, right? Even if he wanted the spiritual consciousness fruit, he would not leave nothing for Tai Shi, at least like the heaven-devouring giant crocodile, half each. How could Lin Yi guess Tai Shi's little plan? Thinking about it carefully, having a little brother like Tai Shi in the small ancient world did not seem to be a bad thing. Chapter 54-65. About this. I have quite a lot of underlings, it doesn't seem like there's much use in taking you in. Lin Yi smiled and looked at the slightly stiff primordial spirit Tai Shi, looking like a picky shopper. Primordial spirit Tai Shi scolded in his heart, I have the strength of a mysterious ascending stage, the undisputed number 1 snake of the immemorial Jianghu. Alright, I can barely be considered as the second snake. You should be lucky to be your underling. Are you planning to keep snatching the consciousness fruit in the future? Boss. You must take me in as your underling. In the future, you can take whatever you want from the treasures on this Tai Shi island. Although he was scolding in his heart, primordial spirit Tai Shi knew that the situation was not in his favor, so he could only continue to suck up to Lin Yi, even calling him boss. The dignified primordial spirit Tai Shi at the early stage of mysterious ascending stage, wagging his tail and begging to be someone's underling. There was no one else who could do this. Lin Yi nodded. Alright, seeing how sincere you are, I'll take you in as a follower for now. Lin Yi nodded. Alright, seeing how sincere you are, I'll take you in as a follower for now. Nominal underling? Damn it. You're the nominal underling. Your whole family are nominal underlings. Primordial spirit Tai Shi scolded in his heart, but on the surface, he looked pleasantly surprised. That's great. Boss. I'll work hard and try to get rid of the word nominal as soon as possible. Marquis Yu, who was below the stage, had already turned around silently. He really could not bear to see this scene. The dignified island master of Tai Shi Island was rushing to be someone's underling, and it was just a nominal underling, yet he was so happy. Then what about him, the underling of the nominal underling? Marquis Yu looked at the sky at a 45-degree angle, speechless. Since I've become your boss, I'm not too embarrassed to take so many of your consciousness fruits. Lin Yi touched his chin, thinking that he should at least give some benefits to this underling. Primordial spirit Tai Shi was overjoyed. Could it be that he was going to return some of the consciousness fruits to me? It seemed that he did not become an underling for nothing. So be it. As long as there were benefits, it didn't matter if he was a follower or not. Of course, thinking about it was just thinking about it. Tai Shi still had to put on an act. Hence, he squeezed out a righteous look and said, Boss, what are you talking about? My stuff is my boss stuff. What's there to be embarrassed about? You're not giving me face by saying that. Heh, in that case, why don't you give me the knowledge fruit's heart as well? Lin Yi smiled mockingly. Tai Shi's primordial spirit was instantly silenced. Damn it, can't you let me live? I'm compromising to be a nominal little brother just to keep the heart of the divine knowledge fruit. As soon as he became the boss, he wanted to ask for the divine knowledge fruit's core. Do you really think I have no temper? Alright, when it came to Lin Yi, the primordial spirit Tai Shi had to admit that it really did not have much of a temper. It could only stammer without being able to say anything. Lin Yi looked at it and suddenly laughed. I'm just teasing you. Since you're my little brother, I naturally can't take your things for free. The primordial spirit Tai Shi immediately showed a grateful look, but he continued to curse in his heart. Damn it, you scared me to death. However, the next moment, a piece of divine knowledge grass root fell in front of him. The pure divine knowledge energy contained in it was not inferior to the divine knowledge fruit. Divine knowledge grass root? The primordial spirit Tai Shi exclaimed. Happiness came too suddenly, and he was really caught off guard. Although the value of this piece of divine knowledge grass root was far from being comparable to 20 divine knowledge fruits, for the primordial spirit Tai Shi, it was more practical than 20 divine knowledge fruits. He had to collect 36 divine knowledge fruits before he could use them. They would not help him improve in a short period of time. However, the divine knowledge grass root could be used to immediately refine his primordial spirit and improve his strength. Thank you, boss. After getting the divine knowledge grass root, the primordial spirit Tai Shi really felt that Lin Yi did not call him boss for nothing. When he called him boss, he was finally more sincere. Lin Yi did not mind. Anyway, the divine knowledge grass root was not a problem for him. It was just a small piece, and it was just a drop in the ocean. He immediately waved his hand at the primordial spirit Tai Shi and said, "You continue to cultivate here. If there's anything, I'll look for you. Bye-bye." "Yes, boss." "Goodbye, boss." The primordial spirit Tai Shi bowed to Lin Yi respectfully, and at the same time, he closed the formation completely. Lin Yi moved and appeared next to Marquis Yu. He said indifferently, "Caretaker Yu, I'll have to trouble you to send me out." Marquis Yu smiled and bowed. He said respectfully, "Yes, old master." Lin Yi slipped and almost fell to the ground. "Pooh, old master. What the hell was that?" Marquis Yu did not think that there was anything wrong with calling him old master. However, when he saw the strange expression on Lin Yi's face, he still explained, "You're my boss. According to the humans, you're the master of masters, so you're old master. Motherfucker, you're the old master." Lin Yi rolled his eyes. He thought to himself, "I'm such a handsome young man. What do I have to do with an old master?" He did not know if this Marquis Yu did it on purpose. Lin Yi snorted and said, "Forget it. Just call me Senior Lin or Boss Lin in the future. Old master or something, you can keep it for yourself." I don't dare. How can I use such an honorable title?" Marquis Yu was very humble. However, when he saw Lin Yi's unfriendly gaze, he immediately changed his tone and said, "But since Boss Lin ordered it, then I'll call you Boss Lin from now on. Let's put it this way then." Lin Yi waved his hand casually. He could not be bothered to waste his breath on such a small issue. He was in a great mood after obtaining 20 God knowledge fruits. Marquis Yu turned his body slightly and led the way with a half-bent waist. His face was filled with a flattering smile, looking very much like a lackey. Lin Yi shook his head secretly. Although such a person's abilities were not bad and much stronger than Bing Wuqing's, his future achievements could not be compared to Bing Wuqing's. The two of them went back the way they came and quickly returned to the exit of the trial. Bing Wuqing and Chu Tianlu had already left. Fortunately, they had not been separated for a long time, and Lin Yi had also arranged a rendezvous point with them. It would not be long before they caught up to the two of them. "Boss Lin, are you preparing to leave? Do you need me to prepare a flying spirit beast for you?" Marquis Yu could not wait for Lin Yi to leave, but he put on a loyal look on his face. Lin Yi smiled and said, "All right, I'll have to trouble you then." When Lin Yi came, he rode on Ling Tianyu's flying spirit beast. At this time, Ling Tianyu and the others had already left. Bing Wuqing was with Chu Tianlu, so Lin Yi really did not have a means of transportation. Although Lin Yi could fly in his primordial spirit form, it was not as comfortable as riding on a flying spirit beast. Chapter 5466. Marquis Yu nodded and bowed with a smile. "It's no trouble at all. It's my honor to be able to do something for you, Boss Lin." As he spoke, Marquis Yu turned his head and whistled. Soon, an aerial spirit beast flew over from a nearby hill at a high speed. Lin Yi landed steadily on the back of the aerial spirit beast with a tap of his foot. He said to Marquis Yu calmly, "That's it then. We'll meet again if we have the chance." Before he finished speaking, the aerial spirit beast flapped its wings and flew more than 10 meters away in an instant, leaving Tai Snake Island in no time. The flying spirit beast was rather tame, and Lin Yi controlled it to fly to the rendezvous point quickly. It was a barren little island about 30 miles away from Tai Snake Island, and with their current speed, it would only take a few minutes to get there. Are these essential energy waves caused by a battle? After flying for nearly half the distance, Lin Yi sensed some movement in the distance. He frowned immediately. That direction should be the island where he had agreed to meet Bing Wuqing and Chu Tianlu. Since a battle had broken out, it was most likely that Bing Wuqing and Chu Tianlu were in trouble. "Buddy, go faster." Lin Yi patted the aerial spirit beast beneath him lightly. With the intelligence of the aerial spirit beast, it could naturally understand Lin Yi's meaning. After Lin Yi finished speaking, its flying speed instantly increased by more than 50%. This aerial spirit beast was indeed holding back. After switching from long-distance running mode to 100-meter sprint mode, the remaining distance was quickly left behind Lin Yi. The small island also appeared completely in front of Lin Yi's eyes. What a big crab! I wonder if it tastes good steamed. Lin Yi saw that Bing Wuqing and Chu Tianlu were still unharmed. He immediately relaxed and muttered with a smile. At this time, on the small island, Bing Wuqing was fighting with a huge sea crab. Judging from the size of the sea crab, it was basically the size of a container truck. To it, Bing Wuqing was nothing more than a snack to fill the gap between its teeth. A sea monster of the early nascent soul realm. No wonder Bing Wuqing couldn't handle it. Lin Yi nodded to himself. He felt that this matter was really fucked up. They had agreed on a random location, and it had only been a short while since they had parted ways, yet Bing Wuqing and the others had managed to encounter such a powerful sea beast. Their luck was unparalleled. Logically speaking, with Bing Wuqing's strength, there really weren't many who could rival her in the primordial underworld. After all, she was a genius, and it was common for her to fight someone of a higher level than her. However, sea monsters of the same level were usually stronger than humans under normal circumstances. Furthermore, Bing Wuqing had already expended a lot of her physical strength and vital energy, so it was reasonable that she couldn't defeat this giant sea crab. Most importantly, sea beasts were born to be extremely powerful water beasts. Bing Wuqing's merciless ice force did not have much of an effect on them. The gigantic sea crab bird did not even bat an eyelid at her freezing ability. As for Chu Tianlu, let's not talk about him. In a battle of this level, it was already thanks to the immovable shadow martial art technique that he was able to stand firmly on the edge. Bing Wuqing was panting heavily. This cold and arrogant man was starting to feel like he could no longer withstand the huge consumption of energy. If not for the black ice supporting him, he would have been defeated a long time ago. However, he had expended too much vital energy now, and the black ice was almost unusable. The giant sea crab did not make much of a move. It merely spat out a string of bubbles from its mouth, which swirled around Bing Wuqing. Bing Wuqing then used the black icicles in her hand to deal with the bubbles. "Human, are you still not giving up? Your grandpa crab hasn't even made a move, and I can already toy you to death. Why do you need to put up such pointless resistance?" The sea crab looked relaxed and at ease. It seemed to be enjoying the feeling of toying with Bing Wuqing in the palm of its hand. Bing Wuqing snorted coldly and said, "Cut the crap. Come and fight me if you can. Don't spit saliva all day and make me sick." As she spoke, Bing Wuqing punctured another 4 bubbles, and the aura on her body weakened a little. Although the sea crab's bubbles did not seem to be very powerful, they were not. If one was trapped by the bubbles, their vital energy would be continuously extracted, and it would be even more difficult to break the bubbles from the inside. It seemed like she could puncture the bubbles very easily now. In fact, Bing Wuqing had already tried it. Normal attacks were completely useless. Only the black ice's attacking ability could achieve this. Seeing that Bing Wuqing's life was not in danger for the time being, Lin Yi was in no hurry to act. Although Bing Wuqing was a genius, the rate at which her abilities were improving was still a little too fast. This giant sea crab was a good whetstone for Bing Wuqing to hone her skills. Especially since the sea crab happened to restrain Bing Wuqing in all aspects, which could put Bing Wuqing in a difficult situation. After this battle, he believed that Bing Wuqing would gain a lot. In the midst of the battle, Bing Wuqing had already noticed the flying spirit beast in the sky. When she saw that it was Lin Yi, she felt much more assured. Unknowingly, in Bing Wuching's mind, there was nothing that Lin Yi couldn't handle. Lin Yi did not act immediately. Bing Wuching immediately understood Lin Yi's intention. She calmed her mind and continued to deal with the giant sea crab. However, after the giant sea crab noticed Lin Yi's arrival, it did not turn a blind eye to him. While it continued to trap Bing Wuching, it said to Lin Yi, "Another human has come. You've gained a lot today. Do you want to surrender? There are idiots every year, but there are especially many this year." Speechless, Lin Yi shook his head and said calmly, "You're just an early-stage nascent soul sea monster. I don't know where you get your confidence from, asking people if they want to surrender whenever they see them. Oh, you make it sound like you're very powerful. The truth is, Lord Crab has no interest in a weakling like you. But since you're so arrogant, I might have to teach you a good lesson." Big Ao, the sea crab, waved its hand, and a water bubble flew toward Lin Yi in the sky. From the sea crab's point of view, Lin Yi was just an ant at Foundation Establishment Great Completion. If not for the fact that the flying spirit beast looked pretty good, it would not have bothered with him at all. Sending a water bubble over was already showing great respect for Lin Yi. In a flash, Lin Yi left the back of the flying spirit beast and pounced toward the sea crab. The water bubble swayed in the air, turned, and continued to chase after Lin Yi. Judging from the fight between Bing Wuching and the sea crab, this thing's outer shell was extremely hard, and Bing Wuching's attacks could not break through it. Although Lin Yi had all kinds of tricks up his sleeves, his primordial spirit was only at Foundation Establishment Great Completion, after all. His physical attacks were definitely no match for Bing Wuching's. Fortunately, Lin Yi was already used to using his primordial spirit to attack. In order to keep Bing Wuching as a practice target, Lin Yi could not use the soul-reaping palm right from the start. So, he chose Tai Shi's consciousness vortex. Chapter 54-67. A genius in a second to remember love go away? The internet provides you with exciting novels to read. Lin Yi had been trying to figure out how to use the consciousness vortex. Although he hadn't completed it yet, he had some ideas, so he decided to use this giant crab as practice. An invisible consciousness vortex appeared on top of the crab's head. The size of this consciousness vortex was quite exquisite. It was about 1/5 the size of Tai Shi's consciousness vortex. Lin Yi wasn't disappointed. It was good enough that it could reach this level. He was already prepared that he wouldn't be able to activate it. Now that he saw the exquisite consciousness vortex, he felt a little proud. The giant crab's physical defense was definitely strong, but its primordial spirit was just so-so. The consciousness vortex that Lin Yi had created was probably useless against Bing Wuching, but it worked surprisingly well on the giant crab's head. Gah! What's this? You're making Uncle Crab dizzy. The giant crab's two eyes moved left and right a few times. Even its huge body started to shake. The consciousness vortex tugged at the giant crab's primordial spirit a few times. Although it didn't pull it out, it still shook it. Lin Yi smiled and encouraged Bing Wuching. This idiot's silly bubbles have exploded. Little Bing Bing, hurry up and beat him up. After Lin Yi's attack was effective, he did not continue to attack. Instead, he gave the opportunity to Bing Wuching. The only thing he could do was to protect Bing Wuching and weaken the opponent's strength to a level that Bing Wuching could handle. Bing Wuching was speechless. Little Bing Bing? What the hell? Although you're my boss, you can't attack me personally, can you? However, Bing Wuching really didn't have time to complain. Because of the shaking of the primordial spirit, the giant crab's bubbles lost control for a moment, and then they exploded. Bing Wuching, who had been surrounded by the bubbles, suddenly jumped up. Black icicles, driven by vital energy consumption, stabbed at the giant crab's two eyes like lightning. Despicable human, do you think you can sneak up on Uncle Crab like this? Too naive, don't look down on me. The crab had recovered slightly and noticed Bing Wuching's sneak attack. It roared loudly and swung its huge crab claw. Sure enough, if you spit out too many bubbles, you will also become a silly bubble. Lin Yi sighed and threw out another spiritual consciousness vortex. He clearly knew that it was Lin Yi who had knocked him out, but he had still only paid attention to Bing Wuqing. This crab's intelligence was indeed a sore point. The damage caused by Lin Yi's spiritual vortex, which he was not familiar with, was basically negligible. However, it was quite good for restraining, especially against sea beasts like the sea crab that had weak primordial spirit defenses. After taking another hit from the consciousness whirlpool, the crab's primordial spirit trembled again as expected. Bing Wuqing's attack, which was used to defend and counterattack at the same time, came to a halt. The slightest difference could lead to a great difference. Bing Wuqing did not encounter any resistance, and the black icicle successfully pierced the crab's eye. Ah! Despicable human, you only know how to sneak attack your master crab. Just you wait for Master Crab. The crab roared and turned to retreat into the sea, intending to escape. To be honest, the crab was really panicking now. Being blinded by the icicle was not a big deal. At his level, he could still use some heaven and earth treasures to recover. The problem was that the seemingly weak human was knocking him out again and again. If this went on, he probably wouldn't have the chance to use any heaven and earth treasures. Lin Yu might have foolishly mocked the crab, but the crab was definitely not stupid. In a life-and-death situation, he had to run if he could. As for whether he could escape, that was another matter entirely. Lin Yi threw another spiritual consciousness vortex over to interrupt the crab's escape. He turned to Bing Wuqing and said, "Little Bing Bing, I'll leave this silly bubble to you. Don't hold back, make a seafood feast." Bing Wuqing nodded with a cold expression. She was seriously considering whether she should change her surname. Little Bing Bing was too mushy. She did not know why Big Boss suddenly started giving people nicknames after meeting the island lord of Spirit Snake Island alone. Lin Yi was secretly laughing at this moment. Of course, he had called her Little Bing Bing on purpose. He was just venting his displeasure at being called a grandpa. It was only natural for him to call his little brother Little Bing Bing. With endless resentment for being called Little Bing Bing, Bing Wuqing instantly appeared behind the crab and thrust her black icicle with all her might. Ow wow! The blind crab screamed loudly. Lin Yi could not bear to look at it. Pfft! Little Bing Bing, you're too dirty. You actually went and pierced someone's anus. The corner of Bing Wuqing's mouth twitched. In a barely audible voice, she said, "I really didn't do it on purpose." The blind crab, whose anus had been pierced, was completely enraged. It flailed its 8 long legs in a frenzy, then desperately, fled into the sea. This time, Lin Yi did not continue using the spiritual consciousness vortex. Although it was getting easier and easier to use, Lin Yi still gave the opportunity to Bing Wuqing. Merciless ice force. The next moment, a huge chill enveloped the crab's huge body. The pressure did not have much effect on it before, but it was obviously different this time. After Bing Wuqing unleashed the merciless ice force, the crab's huge body was forcefully pressed down. At the same time, a layer of frost rapidly formed on its surface. The corner of Lin Yi's mouth curled into a satisfied smile. Bing Wuqing was indeed a cultivation genius. She had actually improved the merciless ice force in the midst of battle. Within the merciless ice force, tiny black ice crystals were faintly floating in the air. It was precisely these tiny black ice crystals that caused the power of the merciless ice force to undergo an earth-shattering change. Geniuses indeed needed to grow through battle. At this point, Lin Yi knew that he no longer needed to interfere. With Bing Wuqing's current merciless ice force, even the crab at its peak might not be a match for Bing Wuqing, let alone the blind crab whose anus had been pierced. A moment later, Bing Wuqing finally finished off the giant crab. She had also completely exhausted all her vital energy. She lay limply on the ground, not wanting to move. Lin Yi came to Bing Wuqing's side, took out a few pieces of supreme-grade spirit jades, and said, "Recover for a while, and recall the details of the battle at the same time." This is a rare and precious experience. Yes. Bing Wuching quickly sat up, took the spirit jades, and said gratefully, "Thank you, Big Boss Lin Yi. Don't stand on ceremony with me." Lin Yi waved his hand and said, "You know my personality. I won't mistreat those who are loyal to me. Alright, I'll stand guard for you." Chapter 5468. A genius in a second to remember love/go away. To provide you with exciting novels to read. Okay. Bing Wuching didn't argue. After sitting down cross-legged, she suddenly thought of something and said hesitantly, "Well, Boss Lin Yi, can you not call me Little Bing Bing in the future?" Lin Yi broke into laughter, thinking that someone finally understood how he felt when he was called an old man. He waved his hand generously and said, "No problem, I won't call you that in the future." Bing Wuching closed her eyes in relief and prepared to cultivate and recover. However, Lin Yi's next sentence almost drove her crazy. "Then how about calling you Deep Well Bing?" "What the hell?" Bing Wuching was a little confused. Boss Lin Yi was a decent person before, why did he suddenly become like this? What kind of stimulation did he receive? Bing Wuching would never know that it was because Marquis Yu had called Lin Yi an old man that Lin Yi had shifted his resentment onto him. Of course, it was also because Lin Yi was a little happy after obtaining the 20 God knowledge fruits. The tumor in his body could probably be removed, so he joked a little more. Seeing that Bing Wuching had entered a state of cultivation, Chu Tianlu walked over and greeted Lin Yi. "Senior Lin, thank you for saving me again. This sea crab is full of treasures. Why don't you let me help you and Senior Bing clean it up first?" Lin Yi glanced at Chu Tianlu and nodded. "Alright, I'll have to trouble you then. Tell me what treasures are on this sea crab." When he was on Heaven Level Island, the sea beasts in the endless sea had never been conquered. Lin Yi had only fought them a few times and didn't know much about them. Even an old captain like Okuda Dam knew very little about sea beasts. But now it seemed that the sea beasts in the ancient underworld weren't particularly strong, so Lin Yi was naturally interested. "It's no trouble at all. It's what I should do." Chu Tianlu laughed modestly, then immediately introduced, "This sea crab's carapace is extremely hard, a good material for forging armor, while its toes are good materials for forging weapons. The most valuable thing is his inner core. The inner core of an early-stage nascent soul realm sea beast is a priceless treasure." When the value of sea beasts' inner cores was mentioned, Chu Tianlu's face immediately became radiant. The inner cores of sea beasts in the initial stage of the nascent soul stage are the main ingredients for refining nascent soul golden cores. Only experts like Senior Lin and Senior Bing can easily deal with nascent soul stage sea beasts. Normally, even if there were a few more nascent soul old monsters, they might not be able to do it. Every nascent soul old monster was the cornerstone of each sect. Even if they knew that the inner core of the sea beast was precious, they wouldn't dare to touch it easily. If something happened to them, the sect behind them would be finished. This could be seen from the Thousand Blades sect's fate after Primordial Invincible left. "Oh. You said that the inner core of sea beasts can be used to refine nascent soul golden cores?" Lin Yi was quite surprised. All along, he thought that nascent ginseng was indispensable for refining nascent soul golden cores, but now that he heard that the inner core of nascent soul stage sea beasts could also be used to refine nascent soul golden cores, he immediately became very interested. After all, nascent ginseng was rare, and sea beasts were easy to come by. For Lin Yi, even if he already had a whole nascent ginseng, there would always be a time when it was used up, but in the endless ocean, sea beasts wouldn't all die. Chu Tianlu nodded. The inner cores of sea beasts are used to refine pills. Senior Lin, you're not an alchemist, so perhaps you're not very clear about this. For example, foundation building pills, golden cores, and so on, are all refined from the inner cores of corresponding foundation building and golden core sea beasts. It's just that sea beasts aren't easy to catch, so there aren't many pills circulating in the world. Oh. Lin Yi smiled faintly. He didn't say that the pills he refined were much more than what Chu Tianlu had seen. Instead, he asked, "It's not easy to catch sea beasts of golden core and nascent soul stage, but is it also not easy to catch sea beasts of foundation building stage?" Foundation building stage is easy to catch, but there are too few sea beasts of foundation building stage. Chu Tianlu shook his head with a bitter smile and explained, "All the sea beasts in the coastal sea are basically below foundation building stage. Even if you catch them, it won't be of much use. In the deep sea, there are sea beasts of foundation building stage, but they are all young sea beasts. If you want to catch them, you have to face powerful adult sea beasts. It's almost the same as catching sea beasts of golden core and nascent soul stage. So that's how it is." Lin Yi nodded and didn't take it to heart. With his strength, whether it was his original body or his primordial spirit, it was relatively easy to catch sea beasts of nascent soul stage. He just didn't know if the inner cores of sea beasts of profound ascension stage were the same. However, it was probably very difficult to find sea beasts of profound ascension stage in the small Jianghu. He would think about it when he returned to the heavenly island. "You seem to understand the inner cores of sea beasts quite well. Are you an alchemist?" Lin Yi asked casually. Since he knew that the inner cores of sea beasts could be used for alchemy, he had to find a way to get the pill recipe and try it out. If Chu Tianlu had the pill recipe, Lin Yi wouldn't mind exchanging some things for it. Unfortunately, Chu Tianlu shook his head regretfully and said, "Junior's aptitude is mediocre. I don't have the talent to be an alchemist at all." Speaking up to this point, Chu Tianlu showed a bashful expression on his face and said hesitantly, "Senior Lin, Junior has a presumptuous request. I wonder if Senior Lin can sell this crab's inner core to Junior for a price?" "You want this inner core?" Lin Yi looked at Chu Tianlu amusedly. This guy was really an honest person. He clearly wanted this inner core, but he first praised it. Was he afraid that others wouldn't raise the price? Chu Tianlu's face was slightly red, and he said very embarrassedly, "Junior knows that the inner core of a nascent soul stage sea beast is extremely precious, but Junior's grandfather's birthday is coming soon. If I can get the inner core of a nascent soul stage sea beast and give it to Junior's grandfather, it can help him advance to the peak of the early nascent soul stage." After a slight pause, Chu Tianlu added, "Senior Lin, what price do you want? As long as you can transfer this inner core to Junior, Junior will definitely find a way to do it. If you get this inner core, can you refine it into a nascent soul golden core? Or, do you have the pill recipe for a nascent soul golden core?" Lin Yi didn't care much about this sea beast's inner core. It didn't matter even if he gave it to Chu Tianlu. After all, if Chu Tianlu hadn't been so honest, Lin Yi wouldn't have been able to obtain the 20 divine knowledge fruits. At worst, he could just catch another sea beast when he wanted to experiment with alchemy. What was important now was the pill recipe for using the sea beast's inner core to refine pills. Chu Tianlu hesitated, then said, "If it's refining pills, with Junior's family connections, there shouldn't be a problem. As for the pill recipe, Tianliang is an alchemist. He might have the pill recipe for a nascent soul golden core." Chapter 54-69. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go. TalkNet, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Lin Yi recalled that Chu Tianliang knew how to use the pill firebomb. He was indeed a pill refiner, but was that guy already dead? "If you can give me some recipes for refining a sea beast's inner core, I'll give this inner core to you." Lin Yi didn't beat around the bush, and directly threw out his conditions. After all, this thing was dispensable to Lin Yi, and Chu Tianlu wasn't suited to beating around the bush. Love Go Little Talk Netka. Chu Tianlu was a straightforward person, but he wasn't really stupid. He immediately reacted and asked in surprise, "Senior Lin, you're a pill refiner?" "Sort of." Lin Yi smiled faintly. "Maybe a little better than Chu Tianliang." Chu Tianlu was immediately overjoyed, but also somewhat bewildered. He didn't know how to react for a moment. "Does your clan have a recipe for this type of pill?" Lin Yi thought that the matter of Duan Muyu's marriage had to be resolved sooner or later. It just so happened that he had this excuse. He'd conveniently go to the Chu clan and help Duan Muyu get rid of this trouble. There should be. Chu Tianlu was indeed a straightforward guy. Even now, he didn't say anything definite. Even if there isn't, with our clan's connections, we can quickly find a recipe. Love go little talk netku. In fact, Chu Tianlu also knew that using an affirmative answer to befriend Lin Yi was the best. Just as he said, even if the Chu clan didn't have a recipe, with their clan's strength, it wouldn't be difficult for them to acquire one. These details could be completely omitted from Lin Yi. But Chu Tianlu didn't like to lie, so he told the truth. Senior Lin, since you need a recipe, why don't you come with me to my clan? I believe my grandfather will be very happy to get to know you, Senior Lin. Chu Tianlu sincerely extended an invitation. Lin Yi nodded. That's fine. Your grandfather's birthday is just around the corner. I'll go and congratulate him. That's great. To be able to receive Senior Lin's presents, our Chu family is greatly honored by your presence. Chu Tianlu rubbed his hands excitedly. To be able to have a good relationship with Lin Yi, no matter if it was for the Chu family or for Chu Tianlu himself, it was extremely important. As for Lin Yi's intention to ruin the marriage alliance between Duan Muyu and the Chu clan, Chu Tianlu didn't know about it. Even if he did, it wouldn't matter. He had no interest in the marriage alliance to begin with. If he knew that Duan Muyu was related to Lin Yi, he would definitely ask his clan to terminate the marriage alliance with the Yiling sect. Senior Lin, please take a rest first. I'll go get rid of this crab. We'll set off once Senior Bing recovers. Chu Tianlu bowed slightly. After waiting for Lin Yi to nod in agreement, he quickly took out a short knife and went to deal with the sea crabs. It could be seen that Chu Tianlu had a certain amount of experience in dealing with the carcasses of sea beasts. Although the shell of the sea crabs was quite hard, Chu Tianlu's short knife penetrated deep into the seams of the crab's body. Then, he followed the lines and dissected the crab's shell. His movements were quite smooth. After more than 10 minutes, Chu Tianlu had dissected the shell of the sea crabs. Together with the claws, they piled up into a small hill as tall as 2 people. Senior Lin, this is the inner core of the sea crabs. Please keep it well. Chu Tianlu held a water blue inner core the size of 2 fists in his hands and ran over to present it to Lin Yi. Although this was what Chu Tianlu wanted, he didn't covet it at all. He looked very natural. Lin Yi casually took the inner core of the sea crabs and sensed the pure waves of spiritual power within it. He smiled faintly and said, "Thank you for your hard work." At this moment, Bing Wuqing finished her cultivation. She suddenly stood up and said excitedly, "Big brother, I've recovered. And I seem to have stabilized my strength. Just in time. We can set off now." Lin Yi nodded in satisfaction. He could feel that Bing Wuqing's aura had become much more solid. Although she hadn't broken through, she had definitely improved a lot compared to before. By the way, why don't you give this inner core of the sea crabs to me? I'll give you some other benefits later. In name, the sea crabs were killed by Bing Wuqing. Lin Yi didn't want to put on a domineering attitude in front of his underlings, so he asked for her opinion. "Big brother Lin Yi, what are you talking about?" Bing Wuqing immediately said solemnly, "If you hadn't helped me in time, I would have been killed by this sea crab. Everything I have was given to me by you, Bing Wuqing. Even if I was the one who killed this sea crab, everything still belongs to you, boss. Needless to say, you were the one who killed this sea crab, so all the credit goes to you, boss." Hearing that Bing Wuqing, a nascent soul realm old monster, was so obedient to Lin Yi, Chu Tianlu was instantly moved. He was even more determined to befriend Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't stand on ceremony anymore. He nodded and smiled. "All right, you've been so cold before, but you're so talkative today. In any case, I won't mistreat my own people. Let's pack up and make a trip to the Chu clan." In fact, with Bing Wuqing's current status, it wasn't a problem at all for her to purchase a few elixir recipes. But since Lin Yi had said so, she naturally wouldn't object. As long as it was Lin Yi's decision, she would carry it out completely. The sea crab's inner core was secretly kept in the space in the jade pendant by Lin Yi. However, the outer shell and the toes were not very convenient. After all, Chu Tianlu wasn't someone Lin Yi could trust completely. Not to mention that this fellow was an honest person. There was no telling when he might expose Lin Yi's secret. Fortunately, Lin Yi's flying spiritual beast was still hovering in the air. Chu Tianlu packed up the spoils of war and placed them on his own flying spiritual beast. He let Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing ride on Lin Yi's flying spiritual beast, while he led the way on his own flying spiritual beast. After setting off, Bing Wuqing regained her usual cold expression. She had always been a cold person, so she couldn't find any topics to talk about. She could only stay behind Lin Yi and continue to reminisce about the previous battle experience. 4 hours later, the two flying spiritual beasts arrived at a stretch of hills. The Chu clan was located in the middle of these hills. Before the old master of the Chu clan broke through to the nascent soul stage, the Chu clan was just an insignificant clan. Now that there was a nascent soul old monster holding the fort, their social status immediately changed. That was why they wanted to form a marriage alliance with the Yiling sect, hoping to advance further and enter the ranks of the 10 small sects and clans. Chu Tianlu, who was in front, slowed down and came to the side of Lin Yi's flying spiritual beast. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior Lin, our Chu clan is right in front. I have already sent a message saying that a distinguished guest will be visiting. I believe that my family will be very happy to welcome Senior Lin." However, Lin Yi didn't feel that the Chu clan was very welcoming of him. When he and Bing Wuqing followed Chu Tianlu into the Chu clan's main gate, no one came to welcome the distinguished guest that Chu Tianlu had mentioned. Not only that, even the people who opened the door had a cold expression on their faces. Chapter 5470. Heh. It seems that you, the young master of the Chu clan, aren't doing very well. Lin Yi looked at Chu Tianlu with a strange expression. He originally thought that Chu Tianlu's position in the Chu clan was at least slightly higher than Chu Tianliang's. Otherwise, Chu Tianliang wouldn't want to deal with Chu Tianlu. However, the current situation was that Chu Tianlu couldn't even obtain the respect of a disciple. As the dignified young master of the Chu clan's direct line of descent, he was truly speechless. Chu Tianlu smiled awkwardly. This disciple belonged to Chu Tianliang's father's faction, so it was normal that they didn't care about Chu Tianlu. As for the information that was sent back before, it was probably intercepted by them. Although Chu Tianlu understood, he didn't explain anything to Lin Yi. After all, he was an honest person. Following the principle of not airing family shame in public, he forced a smile and led Lin Yi in. "Senior Lin, please forgive me. My grandfather is probably in closed-door training, so he didn't receive this junior's message. I've neglected you." Chu Tianlu apologized, thinking that it was good to see his grandfather. Not to mention Lin Yi's strength, just his identity as an alchemist who could refine nascent soul golden pills was a top-notch existence in the small Jianghu. It was enough to be on equal footing with the core members of the 4 great sects and 10 small clans. Chu Tianlu concluded that it was impossible for his grandfather to ignore Lin Yi's arrival. "It's fine." Lin Yi waved his hand indifferently. At his level, he wouldn't care about small things at all. Moreover, his main purpose of coming here was to make the Chu clan take the initiative to break off the engagement, so that the Yiling sect wouldn't be put in a difficult position. If he really received a warm welcome, he really wouldn't be able to open his mouth when the time came. If that idiot Chu Tianliang came back, he might be able to stir up some trouble and give Lin Yi more excuses. If he had known earlier, he would have pulled Chu Tianliang along. Just as Lin Yi was feeling regretful in his heart, he discovered through his divine sense that there were more than 10 golden core cultivators standing in a courtyard not far away. All of them looked unfriendly, and their targets seemed to be Lin Yi's group of 3. Were they trying to stir up trouble? Lin Yi was not surprised, but happy. Someone sent him a pillow just when he was dozing off. Immediately, he secretly transmitted his vital energy to Bing Wuqing. Wuqing, if anything happens later, don't do anything. Don't do anything for the time being without my orders. Bing Wuqing nodded without hesitation. As for the reason? Lin Yi's words were the reason. As long as they executed it accurately, it would be fine. As for the others who saw him nod, it didn't matter. They didn't know what it meant anyway. After a dozen steps, they passed through the eaves and entered the courtyard in front of the hall. It was the place where Lin Yi's divine sense had found someone. Chu Tianlu raised his eyes and saw the dozen or so Golden Core clansmen in the courtyard. He was slightly startled, wondering if they were here to welcome Senior Lin. Even though they didn't greet him directly at the main entrance, this was still a grand lineup. Almost 90% of the Chu clan's upper echelons were present. Second uncle, did you receive my message and come to welcome the honored guest? A smile appeared on Chu Tianlu's face. He quickened his steps and saluted the middle-aged man in the middle. This sinister-looking middle-aged man was Chu Tianliang's father. He was in charge of the Chu clan's finances and cultivation resources, and he was Chu Hengding. Chu Tianlu was about to introduce these clansmen to Lin Yi and let Chu Hengding know Lin Yi's identity and strength, but he was interrupted by Chu Hengding. What honored guest? These two juniors? Chu Hengding snorted coldly and glanced disdainfully at Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing. He couldn't see through Bing Wuqing's cultivation, but Lin Yi's strength was clearly displayed. He was only a consummate foundation building. Bing Wuqing was half a step behind Lin Yi and was following beside him. It was obvious that she wasn't as powerful as Lin Yi. No matter how powerful she was only slightly more powerful than Lin Yi. She wasn't worth his attention at all. It was Chu Tianlu's fault. His previous message simply said that there were honored guests coming and that the clan should prepare a grand welcoming ceremony. He didn't even mention Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing's identities and strength. Otherwise, Bing Wuqing's identity alone would be enough for the Chu clan to prepare a welcoming ceremony of the highest standard. Second uncle, you didn't know. Chu Tianlu hurriedly tried to explain. Even though Chu Hengding's faction didn't like him, Chu Tianlu was an honest man. He still thought about the Chu clan's overall situation. Unfortunately, Chu Hengding didn't want to listen to Chu Tianlu at all. He continued to snort coldly and interrupted, I didn't know you were so daring. Speak. Where's your conscience? Also, why did Wenshang and Xingping's soul jade tablets shatter? Did you collude with outsiders and plot against them? This was truly a case of, if you want to incriminate someone, you can always find a pretext. Only then did Lin Yi realize that Chu Hengding had been waiting for Chu Tianlu. However, it was no wonder. Chu Tianlu and Chu Tianliang had left together. Chu Wenshang and Chu Xingping were Chu Tianliang's people. Chu Tianliang also had the offensive and defensive treasures that Chu Hengding had secretly given him. No matter how one looked at it, Chu Tianlu should have died in the Tai Shi Island trial. However, the one who had returned was Chu Tianlu. Chu Tianliang's whereabouts were unknown, and Chu Wenshang and Chu Xingping were confirmed dead. Even if it wasn't Chu Hengding, who was bent on finding fault with them, any higher-ups in the Chu clan would probably look for Chu Tianlu at the first opportunity to find out the truth. Of course, if it was someone else, they would at least give Chu Tianlu a chance to speak. They definitely wouldn't be like Chu Hengding, who directly accused Chu Tianlu. Just as Chu Tianlu was about to speak, Chu Hengding waved his hand and said resolutely, forget it. I reckon you won't tell the truth anyway. Guards, lock up this traitor and his two companions first. Then, interrogate them carefully. I don't believe that you won't speak. Chu Tianlu didn't even allow him to speak. How did it become that he wouldn't speak? Lin Yi admired Chu Hengding's way of doing things. He was clearly bullying honest people. Only Chu Tianlu would do this. If Lin Yi was in Chu Tianlu's position, he would have killed him with a single slap. After Chu Hengding finished speaking, the two Chu clan members at the peak of the early gold core stage immediately unleashed their auras to the fullest. They fiercely pressed down on Chu Tianlu, Lin Yi, and Bing Wuqing. Bing Wuqing, who had received Lin Yi's warning, naturally didn't make any strange movements. Otherwise, if the Chu clan found out that she was using the aura of a gold core cultivator to deal with a nascent soul cultivator, they would probably just slit their own throats. Wouldn't that be a less painful death? Chu Tianlu wanted to remind his clansmen that of the two people who had come today, one was a genuine nascent soul cultivator, and the other was a ruthless person who could easily crush a nascent soul cultivator. They should never offend them. Unfortunately, under the pressure of two gold core cultivators at the peak of the early gold core stage, he couldn't even open his mouth. Of course, Chu Hengding wouldn't let Chu Tianlu speak. Not all of the Chu clan higher-ups present were on Chu Hengding's side. At least half of them were neutral. Although he didn't know what had happened to Chu Tianliang, since Chu Wenshang and Chu Tianlu were both dead, it was very likely that the Chu clan's treasure he had secretly given to Chu Tianliang had already been exposed to Chu Tianlu. Chapter 5471. A Genius in a Second. Remember love? We provide you with exciting novels to read. No matter what, this matter could not be made known to the neutral higher-ups. Thus, Chu Hengding had already instructed them not to give Chu Tianlu a chance to speak. Tianlu, don't resist anymore. Otherwise, you'll really be labeled a traitor. Be a good boy and come with us to the discipline hall. One of the two peak early golden core experts advised him coldly. Of course, this was just a formality. Whether Chu Tianlu resisted or not made no difference in their eyes. When Chu Tianlu saw that Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing didn't make a move to save him from his predicament, he didn't feel disappointed at all. Instead, he felt very fortunate. Otherwise, if the two of them were to fall out with each other, it would be enough to destroy the entire Chu clan. Lin Yi transmitted his voice to Chu Tianlu and Bing Wuqing without batting an eyelid. Listen to them. Let's go and see what they're up to. The current situation was still not enough for the Chu clan to voluntarily annul the marriage with the Yiling sect. Of course, Lin Yi could use his own strength and influence to intimidate the Chu clan, but that would be disadvantageous. After all, Lin Yi was in the wrong here. As long as no one provoked him, he was usually very reasonable. Of course, if others directly came knocking on his door, then Lin Yi would have nothing to worry about. Hearing Lin Yi's telepathic transmission, the two of them cooperated and allowed the two golden core experts of the Chu clan to place a restriction on their bodies that sealed their powers. Of course, such a restriction would only be effective on cultivators below the golden core stage. Bing Wuqing and Lin Yi, who were in the form of their primordial spirits, simply ignored it. Seeing that Chu Tianlu was easily restrained, Chu Hengding visibly relaxed. At the same time, a trace of ruthlessness flashed across his eyes. Whether Chu Tianliang was dead or alive, he would take this opportunity to kill Chu Tianlu. Lin Yi and the other two were escorted to the discipline hall by the two peak early golden core experts. It was actually just a small courtyard in a corner, but there was a dungeon underneath it. It was large enough to imprison cultivators, including those at the golden core stage. The two members of the Chu clan imprisoned Lin Yi and the other two in 3 separate cells. Then, without saying a word, they left the prison with cold faces. With a wave of his hand, Lin Yi used his Jin Qi to clear a clean area on the ground. Then, he casually sat down cross-legged. Chu Tianlu, who was next door, approached. Ashamed, he said to Lin Yi, "Senior Lin, I truly am sorry. It was because of this junior's matters that I implicated you." Lin Yi waved his hand indifferently and said, "It doesn't matter. Besides, I also know what's going on with Chu Tianliang and his 2 accomplices. Don't worry, when your family comes to interrogate you, I'll testify for you." "Thank you, Senior Lin." Chu Tianlu expressed his gratitude very sincerely. However, Lin Yi could sense that he was not thanking Lin Yi for testifying for him, but for not attacking the Chu clan with Bing Wuqing. If it were any other nascent soul-old monster, it would be impossible for them to endure such treatment from the Chu clan. However, Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing had cooperated with the Chu clan without saying a word. For Chu Tianlu, who placed the Chu clan above all else, he was naturally grateful. Don't mention it. The people who will interrogate you are already here. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. His divine sense had already sensed that Chu Hengding and the other two members of the Chu clan were entering the dungeon. The only difference from before was that Chu Hengding did not walk in the center this time. The one in the center was a man who was slightly older than him. It seemed that his status was higher than Chu Hengding's. When Chu Tianlu heard Lin Yi's words, he turned his head in shock. However, he did not see anyone enter the dungeon. It was clear that in terms of divine sense, Chu Tianlu was worlds apart from Lin Yi. After a while, Chu Hengding and the other two followed the winding staircase and arrived at the dungeon where Chu Tianlu and the others were imprisoned. Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing did not move. They treated the three of them as air. Only Chu Tianlu quickly turned to the side of the corridor and respectfully cupped his hands in salute. Chu Tianlu greets Great Elder and Third Elder. Although Chu Tianlu did not greet Chu Hengding this time, he still nodded as a greeting. Lin Yi was speechless at his procrastination. Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, why bother with such a despicable person? If it were Lin Yi, he would have either slapped him to death or completely ignored him. The cultivator at the peak of the late Golden Elixir realm was the Chu family's great elder, Chu Yunting. When he saw Chu Tianlu, he nodded slightly and said, "Tianlu, what exactly happened? Tell me, the great elder." The other late Golden Elixir realm cultivator was the third elder that Chu Tianlu had mentioned. He was also the person in charge of the Chu family's discipline hall. His dark face was expressionless. He only looked at Chu Tianlu coldly. He did not speak, nor did he move. Without waiting for Chu Tianlu to speak, Chu Hengding interrupted, "Great Elder, what else is there to ask?" Tianliang, Wenshang, and Xingping acted together, but the three of them have not returned. Only Chu Tianlu has returned. It's obvious that he colluded with outsiders to harm his brothers. This kind of person should be executed immediately. Chu Yunting frowned slightly and said, "Hengding, what exactly happened can only be concluded after an investigation. How can you sentence him so hastily? Tianlu is a direct descendant of our Chu family. It's possible that he will become the family head in the future. He just can't be allowed to become the family head." Chu Hengding sneered inwardly, but he did not back down. He retorted, "Great Elder, Chu Hengding, beg to differ. Only Chu Tianlu has returned. Who knows if what he says is true or not? In any case, Tianliang and the others haven't returned. Won't everything be decided by Chu Tianlu's mouth? The Chu family's way of doing things is truly an eye-opener." Lin Yi could not help but mock. He cast a sidelong glance at Chu Hengding disdainfully and said, "Even though I've only known him for a short while, I understand what kind of person Chu Tianlu is. Getting him to spout nonsense and lie is even harder than killing him. On the other hand, Hengding medicinal cauldron or whatnot, spouting nonsense is your ultimate skill, isn't it?" Chu Hengding glared fiercely at Lin Yi and said, "Little brat, what are you, an outsider, interrupting us for? Once we've dealt with the traitor of our Chu family, it'll naturally be your turn to settle the debt. There's no need for you to jump out and seek death in such a hurry, is there? I can't be bothered with your Chu family's matters. However, as for Chu Tianliang's matter, because I'm a witness, I'm reminding you out of goodwill. That brat should already be dead, right? However, this has nothing to do with Chu Tianlu. He was merely trapped in a secret realm during Tai Shi Island's training. He couldn't escape himself, so he can't blame others. If Lin Yi said he would testify for Chu Tianlu, he would definitely do as he said." Chapter 5472. A Genius in a Second. Remember love? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. However, Lin Yi reckoned that Chu Hengding wouldn't believe him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stopped Chu Tianlu from speaking. But this was fine. In any case, Lin Yi was here to stir up trouble. How could he be afraid of stirring up trouble? Chu Hengding sneered, "You and Chu Tianlu are clearly jackals of the same tribe. Do you think we'll believe your words? Tianliang's soul jade tablet hasn't even shattered yet. How could he be dead? You've clearly imprisoned him somewhere, haven't you? Second uncle, Senior Lin, speaks the truth." Chu Tianlu finally found an opportunity to speak, but he was rudely interrupted by Chu Hengding. "Shut up. What right does a shameless traitor have to speak in front of us? And you're even shamelessly calling this junior senior? He's just an ant at the great circle of foundation establishment. What kind of senior is he?" Chu Hengding roared. After lecturing Chu Tianlu, he immediately turned to Chu Yunting and said, "Great Elder, there's no need to ask any more questions. These three must have colluded with each other and colluded with each other. We can be sure just by listening to their lies." Chu Yunting furrowed his brows and said, "You can't be so arbitrary. Hengding, I know how you feel. Tianliang is your most beloved son. It's normal for you to be worried when something happened to him. After all, Tianliang is also my descendant. However, this matter concerns the heavenly road. Both sides are flesh. We have to investigate thoroughly before we can conclude the case. Great Elder, what else is there to investigate? These three are all accomplices. You're willing to listen to their lies, but I don't want to waste time. Third Elder, what do you think? Can't we just execute them?" Chu Hengding was extremely forceful. Not only did he directly reject the Great Elder's suggestion, he even dragged the Third Elder of the Discipline Hall into the water. Although the Third Elder was in charge of the Discipline Hall, he was secretly one of Chu Hengding's subordinates. That was why Chu Hengding had sent Chu Tianlu and the others into the Discipline Hall just now. Now that they were in the Discipline Hall, they were in Chu Hengding's territory. He could do whatever he wanted. He didn't believe he couldn't get the confession he wanted. The only thing that surprised Chu Hengding was that the Great Elder, Chu Yunting, had hurried over after hearing the news. The Third Elder didn't look at Chu Hengding. Instead, he looked indifferent and said expressionlessly, "Everything has to be clarified. We can't act too carelessly. But since Chu Tianliang and the others have disappeared, there are no witnesses. Chu Tianlu is the greatest suspect. Thus, Chu Tianlu's testimony isn't of Chu Hengding said. Third Chu can't, Chu while Elder can't. Chu Hengding glanced at the Great Elder complacently and said in high spirits, "In my opinion, Chu Tianlu, the traitor, should be executed immediately. The two accomplices he colluded with should accompany him as well." Chu Yunting's expression was rather unsightly. He already knew that Chu Hengding wanted the position of family head, but he didn't expect him to be this arrogant and despotic. He didn't even care about him, the Great Elder. "Chu Hengding, we must report this matter to the family head and let him make a decision. After all, this involves two outstanding direct descendants. It can't be decided so casually." Chu Yunting felt a wave of helplessness when faced with Chu Hengding and the Third Elder. He could only bring up the family head. Speaking of which, he didn't have much of a relationship with Chu Hengding and Chu Tianlu. He was completely neutral, and the kind that didn't have any selfish motives. Protecting Chu Tianlu was for the sake of the Chu family, but if he had to fight Chu Hengding to the death just to protect Chu Tianlu, that was something he had to consider carefully. The family head is cultivating in seclusion. We can't disturb him before his birthday, so there's no need to trouble the family head with such a small matter. Otherwise, why would he need us elders? Aren't we supposed to share the family head's burdens at times like this? Chu Hengding had the upper hand, and immediately put on a righteous expression. "Hee, it's rare to see such a shameless person. Wuching, why don't you come and take a look as well? Just treat it as a monkey show." Lin Yi's face was full of mockery. He couldn't be bothered to waste time listening to this guy's pretentious nonsense. Hearing Lin Yi's call, Bing Wuching slowly walked to the side of the fence. She stuck her head out and said, "Boss, are you talking about that old monkey? He's so ugly, how can I not look? It was rare for this cold guy to have a sense of humor. Lin Yi laughed and said, how can you be like this? Why are you speaking the truth blindly? He's ugly, but you don't have to insult a monkey, do you? On the side, Chu Tianlu came to his senses and couldn't help but snicker. He was an honest man, but even a man made of clay had a temper. Chu Tianlu was quite annoyed by Chu Hengding's aggressiveness. Hearing Bing Wuqing and Lin Yi's ridicule of Chu Tianlu, he immediately felt that his anger had been vented. Chu Hengding's face turned red, and he said coldly, you two outsiders, since you can't wait to die, I'll fulfill your wish. I'll send you to reincarnation as soon as possible. Before he finished speaking, his peak-level mid-stage golden elixir aura was immediately revealed. He raised his hands, ready to attack Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing. Chu Yunting's eyes narrowed, but he didn't open his mouth to stop them. Chu Tianlu was a direct descendant of the Chu family, and it was only right for him to protect him. As for Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing, they weren't worthy of Chu Yunting risking falling out with Chu Hengding. Stop. That's Senior Bing Wuqing of the Snow Sword faction. Seeing that Chu Hengding was about to attack Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing, Chu Tianlu immediately paled. He obviously wasn't worried about Chu Hengding's safety, but he was afraid that Chu Hengding would anger Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing, which would bring disaster to the Chu family. The Snow Sword faction? Chu Hengding stopped in his tracks, and immediately became hesitant. In terms of power, the Snow Sword faction naturally far surpassed the Chu family, and he had also heard of Bing Wuqing's name. She was a genius disciple of the Snow Sword faction, and she was already a early-stage golden elixir expert at such a young age. One couldn't blame Chu Hengding for being ignorant and inexperienced, not knowing that Bing Wuqing had already become a nascent soul-old freak. The Chu family simply didn't have enough resources. The 4 big and 10 small clans and schools basically already knew that the Snow Sword faction had 3 nascent soul-old freaks, and that its rise was unstoppable. However, Bing Wuqing didn't go to all the other clans and schools with great fanfare, after all, so it was normal that the second-ranked clans and schools hadn't received the news yet. Chu Tianlu nodded forcefully and said, that's right, it's Senior Bing Wuqing from the Snow Sword faction. She's a nascent soul-old ancestor of the Snow Sword faction, and she's on equal footing with grandfather. Second uncle, you mustn't neglect her. Chapter 54-73. Reeks, Chu Hengding, who had been hesitant at first, immediately laughed out loud. You traitor, you're lying without any basis. Bing Wuqing might be a genius, but who doesn't know that she's only at the early gold core stage? How laughable. If you hadn't said that, I might have been wary of the Snow Sword School. You've just overreached yourself. With that, Chu Hengding prepared to continue attacking. Since he was certain that Chu Tianlu was lying, it didn't matter even if it really was Bing Wuqing inside. At worst, he'd just push all the blame onto Chu Tianlu. Unfortunately, just as Chu Hengding was about to attack, he was stopped by Chu Yunting. Naturally, Chu Yunting would not oppose Chu Hengding for the sake of 2 nameless pawns. However, if one of them was a genius of the Snow Sword faction, the situation would be completely different. From a certain perspective, Chu Yunting and Chu Tianlu were rather similar. They were both willing to put aside their own personal gains and losses for the sake of the Chu clan. It was just that the extent to which the two of them could do so was different. Stop. Chu Hengding, are you trying to put the Chu family on the line? The Snow Sword School isn't something we can offend. Regardless of whether it's Bing Wuqing inside or not, this matter must be handled by the family head. Chu Yunting, who had already taken a step back just now had a rather unyielding attitude. Not only that, but Chu Yunting's own peak late gold core aura also completely erupted, firmly suppressing Chu Hengding. Chu Hengding seemed to be on the verge of surpassing Chu Yunting in terms of power, but in terms of individual strength, Chu Hengding was still far inferior to Chu Yunting. Great Elder, since you're so insistent, then let's go talk to the family head. Chu Hengding's expression was dark. He wasn't as strong as Chu Yunting, so there was nothing he could do. Even though he'd acted so strongly before, he still couldn't completely fall out with Chu Yunting. If things went awry, Chu Yunting would completely fall to Chu Tianlu's side. After saying that, Chu Hengding snorted coldly and left with the third elder. Yu 1, Chu Yunting took a deep look at Chu Tianlu, Lin Yi, and Bing Wuqing. Then, he turned around and left. Things had developed to this point, and it felt like the situation was getting out of control. Hopefully, things would turn for the better after the family head stepped in. However, Chu Yunting wasn't very confident about this. Instead, he felt a faint sense of unease. As it turned out, Chu Yunting's premonition was correct. Why was Chu Hengding, who was only at the peak of the middle stage of the Gold Core realm, able to surpass Chu Yunting, the Great Elder? It was because the family head trusted Chu Hengding. Chu Hengding, who had left first, used just a few words to successfully convince the head of the Chu family, Chu Yuntian. He made Chu Yuntian believe that Chu Tianlu had colluded with outsiders to harm his own brothers and clansmen. When Chu Yunting arrived, Chu Yuntian's anger was already rising, and his face was extremely gloomy. Family head, this matter still needs to be thoroughly investigated. Chu Yunting felt helpless. Because Chu Hengding was deeply trusted by Chu Yuntian, he had been able to quickly enter and meet with the family head. On the other hand, Chu Yunting, as the Great Elder, had been obstructed and delayed for a while. As a result, he couldn't even speak firmly. Before Chu Yunting could finish speaking, Chu Yuntian waved his hand and said, "Yunting, you don't need to say anything more." Chu Tianlu, that unfilial descendant, not only colluded with outsiders to harm his own brothers, but also found someone to pretend to be a nascent soul ancestor and come to the family to swindle people. This is truly intolerable. Chu Yunting's heart skipped a beat. Originally, he had hoped that the family head would be able to turn the situation around. Now, it seemed that it would be good if he didn't add oil to the fire. For the sake of the Chu family, Chu Yunting could only brace himself and say, "Family head, let's put the matter of Heavenly Road aside for now. This matter also involves Bing Wuqing of the Snow Sword faction. In my opinion, that young man doesn't seem to be a fake, so we still need to be cautious in this matter." What Chu Yunting was implying was that, let alone the fact that the Chu family was only a small family right now, even if they managed to form a marriage alliance with the Leaf Spirit sect, they would at most become the weakest of the 10 small sections. There was no way they could compare to an established sect like the Snow Sword sect. Offending the Snow Sword sect would only bring them harm. After hearing Chu Yunting's words, Chu Yuntian calmed down a little. After a moment's thought, he said, "No matter what, Tianlu is still my grandson, a direct descendant of the Chu family. I'll just meet him once and listen to what he has to say. As for those two people, regardless of whether they are Bing Wuqing of the Snow Sword faction or not, let them come with me." Chu Hengding glared at Chu Yunting hatefully. If this old man hadn't messed things up, Chu Tianlu would have died today. But it didn't matter now. Since Chu Yuntian already had a preconceived impression of Chu Tianlu, it would probably be very difficult for him to believe Chu Tianlu's words. If Chu Yuntian didn't have such a personality, Chu Hengding wouldn't have had the opportunity to control the entire Chu family's economy. "Hengding, send someone to the dungeon to bring Chu Tianlu and those two outsiders out. Bring them to my Yang Yuan Hall to see me." Chu Yuntian turned his head and gave this order, then got up and prepared to leave. This was Chu Yuntian's training room, so he naturally couldn't allow outsiders to casually enter, and the Yang Yuan Hall was the place where he received outsiders. Chu Hengding bowed and said, "Yes, family head." He didn't want Chu Tianlu to leave the underground prison so quickly. He didn't even want to send him back after a while. Yu 3, unfortunately, Chu Yuntian was the clan master, and a nascent soul old monster at that. With Chu Yuntian's status, it was obviously impossible for him to lower himself to the dungeon. He could only send someone to bring the three of them to the Yang Yuan Hall. As for Chu Hengding himself, he definitely wouldn't leave Chu Yuntian's side. He didn't want Chu Yunting to cause trouble and ruin the situation. Chu Hengding and Chu Yunting looked at each other with unfriendly expressions when they saw Chu Yuntian leave. They didn't say anything and quietly followed Chu Yuntian to the Yang Yuan Hall. After a while, Chu Tianlu, Lin Yi, and Bing Wuqing were all escorted over. Because they were here to see the Chu family's master, Chu Hengding's subordinates didn't make things difficult for them. Grandfather. As soon as they entered the Yang Yuan Hall, Chu Tianlu took 2 steps forward and knelt down. Lin Yi shook his head inwardly. This guy was really too honest. Since you've already knelt down, you should at least cry and complain about your grievances. All you did was call him grandfather, and that was it. Those who didn't know better would think that you were feeling guilty. Chu Hengding snorted and said, "You traitor, how dare you call grandfather the family head? The matter hasn't been decided yet. How can you pin the traitor label on Tianlu?" Chu Yunting immediately stood up to refute Chu Hengding. He had already made up his mind. Since he had already offended Chu Hengding, it didn't matter if it was more or less. Chapter 54-74. Chu Yuntian raised his hand and said, "Stop arguing. You two aren't kids anymore. How improper." With that, his gaze swept past Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing, and finally landed on Chu Tianlu. He sighed softly and said, "Tianlu, tell us everything truthfully. Don't hide anything." "Yes." Chu Tianlu nodded respectfully, then straightened his body and said, "Actually, we have to start from the start of the trial on Tai Snake Island. The 4 of us teamed up to search for the divine knowledge fruit, but at the last moment, Tianliang brought Chu Wenshang and Chu Xingping to attack me. They wanted to kill me." "Liar." Chu Hengding sneered. "If the 3 of them wanted to kill you, would you be able to return alive? Forget about the 3 of them, even Chu Wenshang alone would be enough to easily dispose of you." There was one more thing Chu Hengding didn't say, and that was the offensive and defensive treasures he privately gave Chu Tianliang. Those were all top-notch weapons that belonged to the Chu family. Even without Chu Wenshang, just Chu Tianliang alone was enough to easily and happily take care of Chu Tianlu. Chu Yuntian nodded. He felt that Chu Hengding's words were very reasonable, but his attention wasn't here. After Chu Hengding finished speaking, he immediately asked, "Tianlu, did you get the divine knowledge fruit?" Lin Yi rolled his eyes. It was obvious that he was going to be sold again. As expected, Chu Tianlu hesitated and said, "Grandfather, I didn't get the divine knowledge fruit." Then he glanced at Lin Yi. There was nothing wrong with his words, but the problem was with the glance he gave Lin Yi. It wasn't that Chu Tianlu was deliberately betraying Lin Yi, but that he would subconsciously not hide it from his grandfather. Although he didn't directly say that the divine knowledge fruit was in Lin Yi's hands, that glance was enough to explain many things. Everyone present was a wily old fox, and there was no one who didn't understand what Lin Yi was implying. It wasn't just Chu Yuntian, even Chu Yunting and Chu Hengding were looking at Lin Yi with a little more passion. The consciousness fruit was a heavenly treasure that could directly raise the level of one's consciousness. The ancient minor underworld focused on the cultivation of one's consciousness and the cultivation of one's physical body. A consciousness fruit was definitely comparable to an elixir that could directly raise the level of one's strength. Chu Tianlu, you finally revealed yourself at a time like this. Chu Hengding suddenly roared. He greatly coveted the spiritual awareness fruit, but he also knew that even if there really was one, it definitely wouldn't be his turn to enjoy it. At this time, it was more important to confirm Chu Tianlu's crime, so he had to take advantage of the situation and use the spiritual consciousness fruit to make Chu Yuntian completely give up on Chu Tianlu. You even said that Tianliang and the others wanted to kill you. It's clear that for the sake of the spiritual awareness fruit, you colluded with outsiders to harm your own brothers and clansmen. And here I was wondering what reason you had to deal with Tianliang and kill Wenshang and Xingping. So it was to kill them and steal their treasures. When Chu Hengding finished speaking, even he himself believed that this was the truth. A liar could tell a lie that they themselves believed to be the truth. Thus, deceiving others was naturally successful. This was especially true for Chu Yuntian. He already had a preconceived impression that Chu Tianlu had colluded with outsiders. Now that Chu Hengding had even found his motive, what else was there to doubt? This was especially true for the spiritual awareness fruit. If Chu Yuntian could obtain the spiritual awareness fruit, it was very likely that he would smoothly break through to the peak of the early nascent soul stage. Since he knew that the spiritual awareness fruit was most likely in Lin Yi's hands, he would not let Chu Tianlu go no matter what. Only by using Chu Tianlu's weakness could he implicate Lin Yi and even Bing Wuqing. That way, the Snow Sword School would have nothing to say. Tianlu, I didn't think that you would still refuse to tell the truth in front of me, the family leader. This old man is truly disappointed in you. Chu Yuntian's face was filled with disappointment and anger. He shook his head dispiritedly and said, since you're still not willing to tell the truth, then as the family leader, I can only use the family law and punish you in the name of righteousness. Clap, clap, clap. Lin Yi clapped again and again. His speed was not fast, but it was very clear and steady. It sounded like he was slapping Chu Yuntian's face. Life is indeed like a play, and it all depends on acting skills. I've really opened my eyes today. Lin Yi's face was full of ridicule. His gaze rested on the face of Chu Yuntian, the family leader of the Chu family, and he said indifferently, old man, Tianlu is your grandson no matter what. If you want to deal with him, you don't have to use such fake acting skills to insult his intelligence. Just do it openly. Chu Yuntian was just about to cause trouble for Lin Yi. He did not expect that Lin Yi would directly come to him. He immediately sneered and said, who do you think you are? How dare you be so presumptuous in front of this old man? But it doesn't matter. Since you're in cahoots with Chu Tianlu, you must have a part in the matter of Chu Tianliang and the other two. Prepare to accompany Chu Tianlu. I already said don't look for excuses. Don't look for excuses. Just do what you want to do openly. Lin Yi continued to mock him. Your clumsy acting skills really leave me speechless. Pointing at Chu Tianlu, Lin Yi continued, you didn't listen to a single word of what he said. Oh, I'm sorry, but you probably did listen to a single word, such as the divine knowledge fruit. Chu Yuntian's expression immediately turned ugly. Everything Lin Yi said was the truth. It was precisely because it was the truth that Chu Yuntian felt so uncomfortable when it was exposed. You treat Chu Tianlu's words as farts, but you treat that idiot's farts as immortal qi and breathe in all of them, right? Lin Yi casually pulled Chu Hengding into his attack range. In the end, he said mercilessly, since you've chosen to be shameless, then you might as well tear off all of your masks. Be shameless to the very end. That way, I'll have a bit of respect for you. Insolence, young one. Chu Yuntian immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. After becoming a nascent soul old monster, there were not many people in the immemorial Jianghu who had the qualifications to speak to him like this, and not to give him any face at all. He had originally wanted to cause trouble for Lin Yi and steal the divine knowledge fruit. Now, it was even more logical for him to make a move. Don't think that just because you have the Snow Sword School behind you, I won't dare to touch you. Even if Yu Taizong comes, I won't let you off today. Chu Yuntian had already made up his mind, so he no longer hesitated. He completely released his early nascent soul strength and raised his hand to grab at Lin Yi. And then, there was no then, it was not Lin Yi who made a move, but Bing Wuqing who had flashed in front of Lin Yi and shielded Lin Yi behind her. Before Lin Yi spoke, he had already sent a sound transmission to Bing Wuqing, telling her that if the other party made a move, she could directly counterattack. So, when Chu Yuntian made a move, Bing Wuqing had already reacted. Now, she did not hold back at all in carrying out Lin Yi's orders. Chapter 5475. A nascent soul old monster. Chu Yuntian's raised arm froze in the air. He stared in shock at Bing Wuqing, who had revealed her strength at the peak of the early nascent soul stage. For a moment, he didn't know how to react. It was unrealistic. There really was a nascent soul old monster. Wasn't Bing Wuching only at the early golden core stage? What was going on? At that moment, Chu Yuntian felt as if there were 10,000 spiritual beasts galloping and howling in his heart. You're a nascent soul old monster, but you're pretending to be weak. You even allowed yourself to be thrown into the dungeon. Do you have masochistic tendencies? Or are you trying to trick people? Chu Hengding felt the same way as Chu Yuntian. He didn't expect Bing Wuching to really be a nascent soul old monster. No, he should have, because he knew better than anyone that Chu Tianlu was basically telling the truth. It was just that he had habitually taken it as a lie. An honest man who never lied said that Bing Wuching was a nascent soul old monster, but Chu Hengding didn't believe him. What else could he say? Lin Yi smiled faintly and shrugged at the few people who were instantly silent. Yu Taitsong didn't come, but I don't think he'll come either. By the way, Patriarch Chu, what are you going to do to us? My head is so itchy, I have no choice but to scratch it. Chu Yuntian coughed dryly, forcibly withdrawing his arm that was frozen in the air. He mechanically scratched the back of his head, and then said righteously, if Yu Taitsong came, he would definitely not allow you to interfere in other people's matters. Since he did not come, then there is nothing for you to do. Pfft. Lin Yi was shocked. This old man's skin was so thick that even a machine gun in the secular world couldn't penetrate it. Chu Yuntian was also sullen. He was a nascent soul old ancestor, one of the few people at the top of the immemorial Jianghu. When had he ever suffered such depression? But Bing Wuching's strength was above his, and the Snow Sword School behind her was far stronger than the Chu family. Chu Yuntian could only swallow his anger. After calmly withdrawing his aura, Chu Yuntian smiled awkwardly and said, so, it really is an esteemed guest from the Snow Sword School. Sorry for the delay. Let's not talk about the misunderstanding earlier. Lin Yi looked at Chu Yuntian playfully, and said with a faint smile, oh, was it all a misunderstanding before? So, you also believe what Chu Tianlu said? Chu Yuntian secretly gritted his teeth and forced out a smile. This matter still needs to be properly investigated. There is no need to rush to a conclusion. Bing Wuching's face was cold, and she said coldly, I can testify for Chu Tianlu, what he said is the truth. They didn't know Bing Wuching's identity at first, or even if they did, they just thought that she was a junior at the beginning stage of the Golden Elixir realm. As for testifying, of course, it was up to Chu Yuntian and the others to believe whatever they wanted. But now, it was completely different. Bing Wuching was also a nascent soul old monster, and her strength could only be higher than Chu Yuntian's. Her status was also extremely noble. If she said she could testify for Chu Tianlu, Chu Hengding wouldn't dare to say a word against her. Even Chu Yuntian would have to think it over carefully. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Bing. I will naturally take care of this matter. Chu Yuntian's expression was a little unsightly. He narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, speaking of which, the Snow Sword School really has a good reputation. Your school has always been independent, and has never interacted with other schools. That's why we, the Chu family, haven't received any news of fellow Daoist Bing's advancement to the nascent soul realm. What he meant was that the Snow Sword School usually didn't have the habit of meddling in the affairs of other families or schools. Although Bing Wuching was a nascent soul old monster, it was best that she didn't come to the Chu family and tell them what to do. After all, Chu Yuntian was also a nascent soul old monster. It was absolutely impossible for him to submit to Bing Wuching just like that and listen to her from then on. By the way, which Snow Sword School are you from? I've heard a lot about fellow Daoist Bing, but I've never heard of you before. Chu Yuntian didn't want to dwell on the topic just now, so he changed the topic and asked about Lin Yi. With Bing Wuching's strength and status, Chu Yuntian definitely wouldn't have any other thoughts if the spirit knowledge fruit was in her hands. However, judging from Chu Tianlu's behavior, the spirit knowledge fruit seemed to be in Lin Yi's hands. So, Chu Yuntian still had some thoughts, and was prepared to find out more about Lin Yi before making a decision based on the situation. I'm not from the Snow Sword School. Lin Yi smiled and shrugged. His expression didn't show the slightest bit of respect for the Snow Sword School. This made Chu Yuntian secretly happy, thinking that he might really get the spirit knowledge fruit. So you're not from the Snow Sword School, little friend. But looking at your heroic appearance, you must be from a famous sect, right? Chu Yuntian continued to put on a gentle smile. If Lin Yi really was a nobody with no background, even if he had Bing Wuqing as a friend, Chu Yuntian wouldn't have anything to fear. Besides, from Chu Yuntian's point of view, Bing Wuqing probably just happened to be there. Otherwise, how could a dignified nascent soul old monster like him befriend an ant who had perfected the foundation establishment stage? Old man, you're going around in circles, aren't you just trying to pry into my background and see if you can snatch the spirit knowledge fruit from me? Why don't you just say it? Why are you wasting so much effort? Lin Yi's expression was full of sarcasm. He was here to stir up trouble. If Chu Yuntian were to admit defeat after seeing Bing Wuqing's strength, it would go against his original intention. Chu Yuntian's face darkened. He was a dignified nascent soul old monster, and the Chu family master was speaking so politely to him that anyone who came would give him some face. But why was this brat so unpredictable? He didn't even think about it. Since Lin Yi had already mocked and ridiculed him before, how could he suddenly be nice to him now? Not to mention that Chu Yuntian was still unwilling to let go of the matter regarding Chu Tianlu. Even if Lin Yi wasn't here to stir up trouble, he would definitely not be nice to him. At the side, Chu Tianlu really didn't want the relationship between Lin Yi and the Chu family to deteriorate. He could only interrupt weakly, "Grandfather, Senior Lin is from the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island." Chu Yuntian's heart thumped again. The Blue Cloud sect of the North Island was also an existence that the Chu family didn't dare to provoke, especially when the Blue Cloud sect, Rising Sky sect, and Xuanji sect were all on the same side. Even the Snow Sword School probably wouldn't dare to go against them easily. No wonder Bing Wuqing would hang out with this brat named Lin. It turned out that their backgrounds were about the same. But the Snow Sword School and the Blue Cloud sect didn't seem to be on good terms. Could they have some secret agreement? Chapter 5476. Reeks. Chu Yuntian thought a little too much for a moment, but he immediately withdrew his thoughts. Since he knew that Lin Yi was not a simple person, then he could not take the spirit knowledge fruit by force. Ha ha ha, so you are a disciple of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island. Ha ha ha, so you're a disciple of the Northern Island's Blue Cloud sect. My Chu family is truly honored to have fellow Bing from the Snow Sword faction and fellow Lin from the Blue Cloud sect. I'm so happy. It just so happens that in a few days, it'll be my birthday. Why don't the two of you do me the honor of temporarily staying in our Chu family for a few days? When the time comes, you can attend my birthday banquet together. Chu Yuntian was becoming more and more adept at changing his expression. When he spoke, it was as if he were talking to two old friends. Remembering that Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing were standing up for Chu Tianlu, Chu Yuntian did not wait for them to answer, but turned to Chu Tianlu and said, "Tianlu, about Tianliang, I'll investigate carefully. If you really have nothing to do with it, I won't wrongly accuse you. You don't have to go to the dungeon for the time being. Take good care of your two distinguished guests." Lin Yi smiled coldly in his heart. This old man obviously didn't believe Chu Tianlu, otherwise he wouldn't be calling him old man all the time. Normally speaking to Chu Tianlu, he'd be calling himself grandpa, right? Bing Wuqing did not respond to Chu Yuntian's invitation. She just stood there expressionlessly. Anyway, she was only here to accompany Lin Yi. What to do next was up to Lin Yi. Lin Yi thought that this was not the best time to bring up Duan Yu's marriage, so he nodded indifferently and said, "Then let's do it this way. Tianlu, let's go. Help us settle down first." Before Chu Tianlu could speak, Chu Yuntian laughed dryly and raised his hand. "By the way, fellow Lin, did you get the spirit knowledge fruit in the end?" "So what?" Lin Yi did not deny it. There was no point in denying it. With Chu Tianlu by his side, as long as Chu Yuntian asked him, he would definitely say it, and perhaps even more. Yu 1, little friend Lin, look, the spiritual knowledge fruit is a treasure of heaven and earth. It would be too wasteful for you to use it at your current level. How about this old man exchange it with a golden core? It would be much better than using the spiritual knowledge fruit to improve your cultivation. Of course, a gold core may not be as valuable as a spiritual knowledge fruit. How about this? This old man will add some other heavenly materials and earthly treasures. If you need spirit jades, what do you think? In order to obtain the spiritual knowledge fruit, Chu Yuntian was willing to sacrifice his old face. With Bing Wuching around, in addition to Lin Yi's background in the Azure Cloud sect, Chu Yuntian had already given up on the idea of snatching it by force. However, he still did not give up, and wanted to use some things to exchange for the consciousness fruit. However, he did not consider that if he obtained the consciousness fruit, and someone else used the same conditions to exchange for it, would he trade it away? Lin Yi looked at Chu Yuntian like he was looking at an idiot, then took out a spiritual knowledge fruit, tossed it up and down a few times, and said, "Do you think it's a waste for me to use a spiritual knowledge fruit now?" Chu Yuntian did not know what Lin Yi meant, and could only bite the bullet and nod. "Well, if you put it that way, it's quite a waste." Lin Yi looked very agreeable, which made Chu Yuntian secretly happy, thinking that there was a chance for this exchange. Then, Chu Yuntian saw Lin Yi put the spiritual knowledge fruit to his mouth, and took a big bite. As he ate, he said vaguely, "It's crispy, so delicious, why do you care if it's a waste or not?" Chu Yuntian almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. "Fuck, that was a spiritual knowledge fruit, and you just ate it like a rotten apple. Forget about fasting and bathing, you should at least take it seriously, right? After eating it, you will level up, don't you need to go into seclusion?" If it were someone else, Chu Yuntian's thoughts would not be wrong, but Lin Yi really ate the spiritual knowledge fruit like it was an apple, and it was fine. The spiritual knowledge fruit's medicinal properties were very gentle to begin with, and it was far from the overbearing tempering effect of the spiritual knowledge grass root. If it were the spiritual knowledge grass root, Lin Yi would not dare to eat it so casually. As for leveling up, there were still 9 cancerous spiritual knowledge tumors in Lin Yi's primordial spirit that had not been removed. Before that, the spiritual knowledge fruit would not allow Lin Yi to level up, so there was no need to go into seclusion. As Lin Yi gnawed on the spiritual knowledge fruit, he called for Bing Wuching and Chu Tianlu to leave. As for Chu Yuntian and the others, he could not be bothered with them. Bing Wuching was originally as cold as ice, so when Lin Yi acted like this, she followed suit and turned to leave. Chu Tianlu, however, did not dare to do what Lin Yi and the others did. He respectfully bowed to Chu Yuntian and the others one by one, then took his leave. Once the 3 of them left, Chu Hengding let out a long sigh. He immediately jumped out and fanned the flames. "Family head, you can't possibly believe Chu Tianlu just like that, right? There's something strange about this. Chu Hengding, what else do you want?" The family head has already said that he'll investigate this matter. Chu Yunting glared at Chu Hengding. Although the development of the situation had exceeded his expectations, it was still a good sign. He didn't want any unforeseen events to occur because of Chu Hengding. Yu 3, Chu Yuntian was suppressing the anger in his heart. He immediately growled, "Don't be noisy. Don't you think this old man is annoying enough?" Chu Hengding understood that Chu Yuntian was extremely dissatisfied with Lin Yi and the others, especially since Lin Yi had eaten the spiritual knowledge fruit he coveted right in front of him. If it weren't for the fact that he was worried about the Blue Cloud sect and Bing Wuching, Chu Yuntian might even have thought of killing Lin Yi. Thus, the situation was still in Chu Hengding's favor. Taking advantage of Chu Yunting's silence after being yelled at, Chu Hengding continued, "Family head, I'm not trying to cause trouble. Chu Tianlu is indeed suspicious. Think about it, if he already knew Bing Wuching and Lin Yi from the Blue Cloud sect, why didn't he mention them before? If he had said that we had these 2 powerful reinforcements, our Chu family wouldn't have to rely on marriage to obtain the right to enter the 10 small families. Chu Hengding was right. It wasn't just Chu Yuntian, even Chu Yunting couldn't refute him. If the Chu family could use these two to form a connection with the Snow Sword sect and the Blue Cloud sect, it would be many times more effective than the already declining Leaf Spirit sect. If Chu Tianlu hadn't used these connections, it wouldn't have mattered. But after the trial ended, Tianliang went missing, when Shang and Xingping died, and he brought Bing Wuqing and Lin Yi back with him. Family head, why don't you tell me what Chu Tianlu is trying to do? Chu Hengding saw that Chu Yuntian had listened to him, so he continued to analyze the situation sincerely. Before Chu Yuntian and Chu Yunting could figure out what Chu Tianlu was trying to do, Chu Hengding raised his voice by an octave and swung his fist fiercely. Chu Tianlu is trying to force the Chu family to abdicate. Don't be fooled by that brat acting like an honest person all this time. You can see now that he's a wolf with wild ambitions. Tianliang is the only one among the younger generation who can be more outstanding than him, so Chu Tianlu is secretly plotting to take advantage of this trial to bring people to harm Tianliang, then use Bing Wuqing and Lin Yi's influence to force the family head to acknowledge his position as the Chu family successor. Chapter 5477. Genius 1 second. Remember the web, providing you with wonderful novels to read. After saying this, Chu Hengding felt that he was awesome. He was actually able to deduce the truth so perfectly. If he had been to the secular world, he might have even pretentiously added, "There is only one truth." Chu Yuntian had already believed Chu Hengding's words before. Now, he was even more convinced. Even Chu Yunting was silent. He didn't know how to refute Chu Hengding's words. "Hengding, take good care of the two guests for the next few days. Don't give them any excuse to act up. As for Chu Tianlu, let him move freely for the time being. However, someone must secretly monitor his actions at all times. When the two of them leave the Chu clan, we will settle the score with this unfilial descendant." Chu Yuntian made the decision with a gloomy face. Chu Hengding was naturally overjoyed, and Chu Yunting couldn't raise any objections. After all, the decision was made by the clan master. He couldn't object. Chu Tianlu didn't know that he had been labeled as a traitor by the Chu clan. He was still very happy to thank Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing. This time, it's all thanks to Senior Lin and Senior Bing's help. Otherwise, this junior would really be misunderstood by the clan. Lin Yi shook his head inwardly. This poor child was really naive. The group of people led by Chu Hengding had never misunderstood him. When it came to arranging guests, there would naturally be servants. Chu Tianlu was just accompanying them. Under the guidance of the Chu clan's disciples, Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing were arranged to stay in a separate courtyard. The environment was very quiet and elegant. Obviously, it wasn't a place where ordinary guests could stay. "Seniors, this is the guest room of the Chu clan for receiving distinguished guests. If you need anything, you can ask the servants to do it at any time." Chu Tianlu and Lin Yi were already quite familiar with each other, but they still maintained enough respect when they spoke. Lin Yi nodded indifferently and said, "This place is not bad. Anyway, we're only staying here for a few days. You don't have to worry about it." After pausing for a moment, Lin Yi took out the crab's niden and handed it to Chu Tianlu. "This niden is for you. Prepare the pill formulas and send them to me. This is what we agreed on before. Is there a problem?" Chu Tianlu was overjoyed. He immediately stretched out his hands and carefully received the core. "Of course, there's no problem. Senior Lin, this is a great help to this junior. With this nascent soul stage sea beast core, this junior's grandfather will have the opportunity to refine a nascent soul golden core and break through his current realm. Perhaps the matter that was targeting this junior will be completely resolved. It's good that there's no problem. Hurry up and get this done." Lin Yi waved his hand, indicating that Chu Tianlu could leave. "Yes, Senior Lin and Senior Bing. Rest well. This junior will take his leave first. The pill formula will be sent over soon. Chu Tianlu held the inner core and bowed respectfully. Then, he happily went to look for the pill formula. After Chu Tianlu left, Bing Wuqing shook her head and said, "Boss, if you want these pill formulas, I can think of a way to get them. After all, in the ancient world, the precious things are the ingredients and alchemists for refining pills. As for these pill formulas, they're not that rare." "Huh, so you're saying that there's no need for me to give the Niden to Chu Tianlu?" Lin Yi turned to look at Bing Wuqing and asked with a smile. A rare smile appeared on Bing Wuqing's expressionless face. "No, what I'm saying is that if boss really wants these pill formulas, I can think of a way to get them. As for Chu Tianlu, let's not hold too much hope. When we were on the island, I still had some hope for Chu Tianlu. But with the current situation, it's not very likely that he'll be able to get the pill formulas. However, this is exactly what I want." Lin Yi shrugged and turned to walk back to his room. "You should rest as well. Let's wait and see what the Niden will bring us in the end." "Yes, boss Lin Yi," Bing Wuqing replied. After a moment of silence, she showed an understanding expression. After Lin Yi entered his room, she walked into the room next to Lin Yi's and began to cultivate cross-legged. After about 20 minutes, Chu Tianlu returned to Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing's small courtyard. He paced back and forth in front of Lin Yi's door, but he didn't go up and knock. Lin Yi already knew that Chu Tianlu was coming, so he didn't make him wait. He opened the door and said, "I'm done. Senior Lin, I'm too useless. I couldn't get the pill formulas you wanted." Chu Tianlu lowered his head and cupped his hands in shame. "It's fine if you couldn't get them. Is it because your family doesn't have the pill formulas?" In reality, Lin Yi already knew this result. With Chu Tianlu's current awkward position in the Chu clan, it would be strange if he could get the pill formulas. Exchanging the Niden of a nascent soul stage sea beast for the pill formulas wasn't important for the pill formulas, but for the Niden. Lin Yi already knew that with Chu Tianlu's current status, it would be impossible for him to get the pill formulas. However, the Chu clan definitely wouldn't give up on the Niden of a nascent soul stage sea beast. Especially when the Niden was in Chu Tianlu's hands. As expected, Chu Tianlu's next words confirmed Lin Yi's guess. "The pill formulas should be there, but Chu Hengding wasn't willing to give them to me. Not only that, he even snatched your Niden away. He said that his youngest son, Chu Tianhao, bought it and prepared it as a birthday gift for his grandfather. You directly took the Niden to Chu Hengding to get the pill formulas." Lin Yi was completely speechless. He had planned for Chu Tianlu to take out the Niden to attract the attention of the people in the Chu clan. He didn't think that this guy would be so honest and directly go to Chu Hengding to exchange for the Niden. "Don't you know that Chu Hengding has already shed all pretense of cordiality with you? Don't talk about accepting the Niden that was sent to him. It's already very kind of Chu Hengding to not accuse you of stealing and kill you. To be honest, if Chu Yuntian didn't say that he would temporarily let Chu Tianlu stay to entertain Lin Yi and Chu Wuyo, Chu Hengding might really have taken the opportunity to teach Chu Tianlu a lesson." However, this wasn't something that Lin Yi could have predicted. Chu Tianlu thought about it now and realized that he had indeed done something stupid. After hearing Lin Yi's question, he said shyly, "Chu Hengding is in charge of all the finances and resources of the Chu clan. If I want to exchange, I can only go to him. So I just sent myself to him to be snatched away." Lin Yi rubbed his forehead helplessly. Although this was originally his plan, and the results of Chu Tianlu's actions this time were much better than he expected, Lin Yi really didn't know what to say about Chu Tianlu's character. To be continued. Chapter 5478. Genius 1 second. Remember the net, providing you with interesting novels to read. How did this guy grow up under the covetous eyes of Chu Hengding and his son? How did he even participate in the trials alive and well? Senior Lin Yi, although the inner core has been stolen, I will definitely find a way to get the pill formula back for you. If I can't do it, I'd rather die as an apology. Chu Tianlu felt that he really owed Lin Yi too much, so he swore fiercely. Lin Yi waved his hand and said, "It's not that serious, it's just an inner core. Didn't you say that Chu Hengding wanted his son to give it to Chu Yunsheng as a birthday gift? I'll just get it back then." Since Chu Hengding dared to steal Lin Yi's things, he naturally had a set of excuses. For example, he could say that Lin Yi's inner core was stolen by Chu Tianlu. However, would Lin Yi care about these excuses? After thinking about it, Lin Yi still said a few more words to prevent Chu Tianlu from going into a dead end. "You really don't have to worry about it, I'll take care of this matter. Keep a low profile these few days and don't provoke Chu Hengding and his people. Wait until your grandfather's birthday." Chu Tianlu said solemnly, "Thank you for your advice, Senior Lin. I understand." After all, Chu Tianlu was just being honest, not stupid. He could still understand Lin Yi's meaning. After feeling the fall of his status and the malice of Chu Hengding's people, he also knew that he had to keep a low profile to protect himself. Everything would be revealed in a few days at Chu Yunsheng's birthday. On the day of Chu Yuntian's birthday, the Chu family was decorated with lanterns and streamers. Lin Yi and Bing Wuqing also received an invitation early on. Accompanied by Chu Tianlu, they went to the Chu family's guest hall. At this time, there were already many guests in the guest hall. Before they entered, they could hear Chu Yuntian's hearty laughter. Obviously, he was in a good mood. "Let's sit by the door. It'll be quieter." Lin Yi didn't want to join in the fun, so he said lightly. Bing Wuqing completely followed Lin Yi's lead, so she naturally didn't have any objections. Chu Tianlu had been used to keeping a low profile for the past few days, so he didn't think it was inappropriate. So, the three of them entered the room and sat down in an empty corner. From this position, he could have a panoramic view of everything in the hall without attracting attention. For Lin Yi, this was very ideal. Most of the cultivators in the hall were focused on Chu Yuntian. As for the three people in the corner, they didn't care at all. As long as they had some status, they would be invited to sit next to Chu Yuntian. Those who sat in the corner were mostly younger disciples. With the age of Lin Yi and the other two, there wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Your Chu family's face isn't small. There are quite a few sects that have come to congratulate you." Lin Yi casually swept his gaze over them and lightly smiled. "Just the nascent soul eccentrics, there are almost 10. I presume your Chu family won't have any problems becoming one of the 10 minor sects this time. Many thanks for Senior Lin's auspicious words." Chu Tianlu hastily cupped his fists and bowed in thanks. For someone like him who was always thinking about the Chu family, there was nothing happier than hearing that the Chu family would prosper. Lin Yi waved his hand and didn't say anything. His gaze fell on the two people beside Chu Yuntian. The Leaf Spirit sect master was Yi Qingsheng. As for the melancholy beauty standing beside him, wasn't that Duanmu? He hadn't expected Duanmu to also come to the Chu family. Lin Yi faintly smiled. Thinking about it, it was normal. Since the Leaf Spirit sect was preparing to have a marriage alliance with the Chu family, then the main character of the marriage alliance, Duanmu, had to come to Chu Yuntian's birthday celebration. Lin Yi looked at Duanmu and then at Chu Yuntian. This was also good. He would thoroughly resolve this matter today. Bing Wuqing also seemed to see some problems. "Lin Yi, Duanmu seems a bit off. Do you want to go take a look?" Bing Wuqing knew about Lin Yi and Duanmu's relationship. So when she saw Duanmu, she subconsciously carefully observed her. She found that her eyes were empty, without any expression. "It's fine. She's just too worried." Lin Yi didn't mind. There was nothing wrong with Duanmu. Otherwise, she wouldn't have such a melancholy aura. Although he knew Duanmu was fine, Lin Yi inexplicably felt a bit of heartache when he saw her like this. Bing Wuqing looked at Duanmu again and didn't say anything else. As time passed, more or less all the guests had arrived. Those who had come from far away had basically arrived a day or so earlier. So Lin Yi's group of 3 was quickly filled with young cultivators. After Chu Yuntian stood up and said a few words of thanks, the formal banquet began. The delicacies that had been prepared long ago were brought up like flowing water. However, Lin Yi's group of 3 only tasted a little. They chatted idly with the people next to them. After 3 rounds of wine, the Chu clan's juniors began to present their birthday gifts. This was a necessary part of a birthday banquet. The meaning was to let others see the prosperity of a clan. Grandpa Patriarch, I wish you happiness as great as the East Sea and longevity as long as the South Mountain. The first to come out was a 3rd-generation junior from the Chu clan's side branch. In terms of seniority, he could be considered Chu Yuntian's grandson. What this side branch junior presented was a formation diagram hand-drawn by a famous master. Although it was a simple formation diagram, it was still a pretty good item. It barely qualified as the first birthday gift. Chu Yuntian nodded with a smile. It was hard to tell whether he was satisfied or not. Chu Hengding, who was standing beside him, took the formation diagram and put it aside. Lin Yi frowned slightly and said, "Why do I feel that Chu Hengding's aura is a little unstable? Did that old guy break through in the past 2 days?" "I didn't hear that." Chu Tianlu raised his head and looked at Chu Hengding strangely. He shook his head and said, "He should have been busy with Grandpa's birthday banquet these past few days. How could he have had time to go into seclusion to break through?" With Chu Tianlu's level, whether Chu Hengding had broken through or not, he wouldn't be able to tell. However, what he said made sense. Chu Hengding had been busy preparing for the birthday banquet these past few days. He really shouldn't have had time to go into seclusion to break through, unless he was like Bing Wuqing and had the support of a tycoon like Lin Yi, who gave away pills like candy. Bing Wuqing also looked at Chu Hengding carefully. Then, she shook her head slightly at Lin Yi, indicating that he couldn't see anything strange either. Lin Yi shrugged and said indifferently, "Maybe I saw wrongly." "Forget it, there's no need to pay too much attention to such a small character." Chu Tianlu sweated slightly. Only a ruthless person like Lin Yi could call Chu Hengding, who was at the peak of the middle stage of the Aurous Core realm, a small character. In any sect or family, the peak of the middle stage of the Aurous Core realm was considered a high-level battle force. To be continued. Duanmuyu, who was at the side, suddenly curled his lips and muttered. It just so happened that she was muttering right after Chu Tianhao finished speaking. Everyone in the hall was silent, waiting to see what Chu Tianhao would give Chu Yuntian. Thus, Duanmuyu's whisper was just loud enough for everyone to hear. After all, they were all cultivators, and having good hearing and sight was a basic quality. Chu Tianhao's pretty face immediately flushed red. He knew Duanmuyu, and as long as he could gain Chu Yuntian's favor, he was completely confident in marrying this beautiful woman. However, he hadn't expected that this woman he had coveted for so long would suddenly say something so sarcastic. It really put him on the spot. Chu Yuntian's smile also froze. Fortunately, Yi Qingqing reacted quickly and immediately scolded, "Duanmuyu, what nonsense are you spouting? Hurry up and apologize to Senior Chu and young Master Tianhao." Duanmuyu snorted softly, her face full of reluctance. With her personality, she wouldn't do anything rude. However, when she thought about the possibility of marrying this pretty boy, Lin Yi's figure suddenly flashed through her mind. Thus, for some reason, she couldn't help but stab Chu Tianhao. With Yi Qingqing's excuse, Chu Yuntian immediately laughed and waved his hand. It's fine, it's fine. Sect Master Yi, don't be too serious. It's normal for young people to like to joke around. As old people, can't we see our descendants playing around in front of us?" The implication was that he had already regarded Duanmuyu as his own descendant. As for her rudeness, he wouldn't pursue it any further. Yi Qingqing smiled knowingly. Senior Chu is indeed broad-minded. It's admirable. Oh right, Young Master Tianhao's birthday gift seems to be an extremely precious treasure. Hurry up and let us broaden our horizons. These two were both wily old foxes. With just a few words, they smoothed out the sudden situation. Yi Qingqing complimented and then took the opportunity to shift the topic to Chu Tianhao. There was no trace of deliberate intent. Chu Tianhao kindly said, "This little girl dares to not give me face. Wait until I marry her and see how I'll deal with her." Hearing Yi Qingqing mention his gift, Chu Tianhao hurriedly put away the petty thoughts in his heart. Full of energy, he held the purple-red wooden box in a position parallel to his forehead. "Grandpa, this is the inner core of a nascent soul stage sea beast that I've collected with great effort. I hope it can help Grandpa refine a nascent soul golden core and reach a higher level." Chu Tianhao said proudly and slowly opened the purple-red wooden box. A touch of faint blue light rose from the wooden box, and waves of pure spiritual power faintly emitted from the wooden box. There was a sudden gasp in the hall. There were many nascent soul stage old monsters present. This nascent soul stage sea beast's inner core was absolutely attractive to them. Chu Yuntian was also surprised and happy. He was happy that Chu Tianhao was able to find a nascent soul stage sea beast's inner core. Moreover, this inner core was the size of 2 fists. If it was used to refine a nascent soul golden core, it could be divided into at least 3 portions. If he found an alchemist to refine the inner core, 3 portions of materials could basically guarantee a pill. But he was surprised that Chu Tianhao actually took out a nascent soul stage sea beast's inner core. Didn't he know that there were more than 10 nascent soul stage old monsters here? Didn't he know that an ordinary man's wealth would cause him to get into trouble? Didn't he know that he was only the weakest early nascent soul stage? If someone tried to rob him, who would help him keep the inner core? Feeling the greedy gazes of the surrounding nascent soul stage old monsters, Chu Yuntian wished he could immediately put away the inner core. However, under the watchful eyes of so many people, doing so was a bit too unsightly. Moreover, what he wanted to see had already been seen, so there was no point in putting it away. "Grandpa, he's lying. This inner core was prepared by me for Grandpa." Just as Chu Yuntian was struggling between joy and worry in his heart, Chu Tianlu appeared out of nowhere and stood next to Chu Tianhao, glaring at him. To be continued. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.